There are people who know that there's more to getting there than just getting there. Who know that going fast isn't fast enough. And who know living isn't the same as feeling alive. They're people who aren't afraid to stand out, make noise, make waves, and never look back. This one's for them. The Mercury 115 horsepower and 150 horsepower Pro XS outboards. Built to win tournaments. Designed to win your heart. Mercury, go boldly.
And we're back with JP the Rose. How are you, buddy?
Good. What's going on, man? Just loading things up on Facebook so I can keep an eye on questions that come in. Yeah, we're ready. We got the Canadian Hammers from the Elite Series on today, don't we?
Yeah, and we were in that closed room for a bit, and Corey and Chris are actually driving back. They've got the phone position, which is cool. And I guess they're going. Did they say where they were going? Or
they're going to Bradenton to do some red fishing, which I have no sympathy whatsoever for any of those three guys because I'm going to be shoveling snow all day today.
I know. I guess Gussie said, "Oh, it's raining down here," and I'm like, "Okay." And what's redfish? Just so people that don't know what that is.
Red drum. It's basically a saltwater species. It's very much like a bass. It lives shallow most of its life. It eats artificials incredibly well. I mean, it's probably, if you're a sight fishing smallmouth guy, fishing for redfish should be second nature for you because you fish them on the flats. You can sight fish them. You can catch them when they're tailing. I mean, just phenomenal fish. And they fight like a carp. So it's like a fish that eats like a bass but fights like a carp.
Wow, that's amazing. And what's the normal sizes? Do they get like bigger than bass, or? It
depends where the guys are going. The average one's going to be in that 4 to 8 pound range, like a nice solid fish. But they get big. Bull reds in Louisiana get over 40 pounds. So
wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. All right, so you know why you're here, because you're the most qualified when it comes to this stuff. You're amazing. I always say it. I can't believe it, but you're just like I don't know how you think and remember all these things. It's crazy, but good for you. So I'm gonna step out. We're gonna go to a quick commercial. We're gonna come back with the boys. And again, JP, I just want to thank you for all you're doing for us. And again, every year you're there for us for the show. And I'm really happy we got this happening with these guys. And this might actually become a big segment because we're always somehow colliding with BASS over the past few years now. And as far as the show goes, and maybe we could do a live segment in conjunction with the show next year. That way we get the guys on during the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. So once again, for all the folks that have tuned in, keep in mind that all the past videos, including last night's video with Brian Latimer, Eric Luzak, and Cooper Glunt, GP, that went very well. I think it was amazing. You got a lot of information there for people that are looking. Like, keep in mind that you want to send the questions in as you hear them. Don't wait till, okay, anybody got a question? As soon as you hear if Corey or Chris or Gussie say something that triggers a question,
just type it in.
Type it in. And JP is going to make sure that those questions, he's got to balance them because a lot of times it's the same questions coming in too, right? So there is a little bit of that going on. So, but ask that question right away. Don't wait till after the show. You go, man, I should ask that question. And this is all live, folks. So this is going to be a great deal. So I'm going to step out, and JP is going to come back with Jeff Gustafson, Corey, and Chris Johnson.
When there's miles of water in front of you and hundreds of feet below, you need a boat with the chops to dominate, no matter the conditions. With the strength and technology to overcome the elements and the competition. Ranger Boats, still building legends, one at a time.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the final day. I'm going to say I'm thankful it's the final day of the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. We are inconveniencing our brothers from the north here who just finished an incredible round down at, I guess, St. John's River was where you guys were at. All three of our guys just finished the Elite Series event there, all cashing checks, all finishing in the money, all having a great start to the Angler of the Year race. So here's what's going to happen. We've got, obviously, Jeff Gustafson, Chris and Corey Johnston. Chris and Corey are driving. Jeff is still down in Florida. You guys are heading to your next event when?
We got a week off, and then we fish next week up in Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee.
All right, so folks, this is how we're going to do it so that we can get these guys to as much information out of them as possible. If you have a question, please type it in the comment section below. I'm going to ask you also, all of you tuning in, there's already 70 of you online that I can see. Just share the button. Click the share button so we can get this out to as many people as possible and we can ask some questions to these guys. So let's see. We're going to start right away. I got a question from Attila that I can see. How's the fishing down south different from fishing natural lakes in Ontario? And I'll start, guys, let's keep it tight. I'll go. Corey, you could start. Gussie, I want you all to give your opinion on how it's different down there, or is it the same when you're fishing? Let's use Florida as an example. Corey, how do you find fishing different?
I find it very similar in Florida. The main difference in Florida between where we live back home is the Florida stream bass. And when it's warm, they fish very similar. You catch them in grass, pads, reeds, just like you would back home. But when you get a cold front, you can't catch them. And that's basically the main difference. That's about it.
All right, Gussie, do you echo Corey's?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as far as fishing in Florida is pretty general in those terms. For me, the biggest difference just overall in fishing down south is they're all reservoirs. There's very few natural lakes. There are a few in Florida. And then the main forage in a lot of these reservoirs is shad. And I mean, up where I live around Lake the Woods, we don't have any shad. So just like learning about the shad spawn in the spring and just how they influence where the fish go and how to, what they primarily like feed on. That was sort of the biggest difference in learning curve that I went through, I think.
All right. And Chris, you're last on this one. Let's just give them a different direction. So the difference is, obviously, Corey has said it's about the cold fronts, and it's pretty similar other than that, just the fish strain. Gussie saying bait. How hard is it, Chris, where we come from a place where really we can't fish this time of year for bass all our life growing up? Has that been a challenge for you?
It's definitely the biggest learning curve, and especially when you're talking with Florida, we fish very similar back in Ontario in the core of the lakes to Florida growing up flipping reeds and stuff. But when you're talking cold weather and reservoirs where there's no grass, there's definitely a learning curve to it. And like Gussie said, their main forage is shad. It's always moving. So there's some adjustments to make. And that's why you see some anglers, it takes 3 or 4 years, maybe fishing a tour or something to kind of catch on to some of these lakes. And it's a struggle to start. Once you figure it out, then you can kind of use it in reservoirs all across the states. But there is a learning curve.
Okay, awesome. And so I got a question here. Vic, if you could put up Michael Blumhagen's question, if you can. Yeah, thank you. So favorite rod in your current lineup, rod lineup. So let's bring it into, if you had to pick one combo, let's just say someone's looking for a jack of all trades combo. All right, I'll ask each of you, pick your combo. What rod, what length, what power, what action, what reel, what line. So Corey, if you had to pick one that'll do the most for you, what are you picking?
I got a rod that I'm actually designing right now for Daiwa. It's a 7.5, and it's kind of a medium heavy rod. It's kind of your jack of all trades rod. You can fish chatterbaits, you can throw Senkos, you can flip light baits on it. So that's definitely going to be my go-to rod. Match that up with Tatula, and that's my setup right there, 8-1. You can't go wrong.
All right, Gussie.
I'm the finesse smallmouth guy a little bit. I'm going with the G Loomis 901 spinning rod, and that's available NRX line, IMX Pro. So you got a long, fairly soft rod. You can cast a small bait like a hair jig or a really good spy bait rod. Cast them a long way. Feel bites. Rocking some 8-pound Power Pro. A 2500 size Shimano reel. I'm a big fan of the Accents, but the new Vanford is going to be really nice. Whatever reel is in your budget there, but I like a 2500 size generally. Kind of good for everything.
All right, and Chris, your combo. You have a jack of all trades combo.
I'm gonna go the flipping route. Something we do a lot of, especially in Florida here. And I like the the Daiwa Tatula Elite Ishimano 7.6, paired up with a flip and punch and reel from Tatula, and you can flip a mini jig with it. You can punch with that combo. If you're into throwing heavy line, heavy braid, that's kind of your go-to setup. So that's my go-to for that.
All right, awesome. Some great information there. So we're getting questions coming in. Folks, if you can obviously click the share button for us, that helps it go a long way. And if you have questions, put them in the comment section. We're going to get you. This is your opportunity really to have 3 of Canada's top tournament anglers answer questions for you that can help you put the pieces of the puzzle together for the coming season. So here's another one. Norm Heyman, Victoria, has a question. Thank you. What is everyone's absolute favorite body of water to fish bass in Canada? Let's say Canada or the U.S. Let's go one of each. Favorite lake in Canada, favorite lake in the U.S. Corey, you start.
In Canada, I would say I got 2 of them. One's the Thousand Islands in that eastern end of Lake Ontario, and the other one's Lake Simcoe. And as far as the U.S. goes, I really like fishing down in Florida here, Okeechobee. The St. John's has been fun. So basically any Florida lake, and then Thousand Islands and Lake Simcoe.
All right, Gussie?
I'm going with my home lake, Lake of the Woods, best multi-species place in the world. Probably really, really good smallmouth fishing. We don't have the magic recipe for the giants, the gobies and zebra mussels, but really, really good fishing. Catch a lot of fish. In the U.S., I'm going with Lake Lanier. Probably the best big spotted bass fishery in the southeast, and I really enjoy fishing that place.
All right, and Chris?
I'm going to have to go with Lake Ontario out of Kingston. That's always one of my favorite places to fish. I don't get to do it very often anymore, but any chance I get, I want to go fishing there. And then it's pretty hard to compete with Lake Champlain. You can catch largemouth, smallmouth, and it's one of the best fisheries in the U.S., I believe.
All right. Vic, yeah, you can push through that question if you want. We got a question coming in from our YouTube viewers. Peter, what's going on? Pete Morocco is asking, great job down south, boys, competition-wise. What's the biggest difference from up north to down south? So, single biggest difference. Corey, you can start with this one. Corey, you frozen?
I got it.
All right, Gussie.
Biggest difference competition-wise, I mean, I don't know. I think it's just the different types of fisheries that we go to, And one thing, like a lot of these lakes we've gone to now multiple times, I always save all my waypoints and places where I caught fish or things that I found. And very seldom from like one year to the next are the same places good. Versus up north, I mean, a good spot is just going to be good typically year after year, and unless too many people get onto it and fish it. But the water levels change a lot more in these reservoirs, current. We're fishing a lot in this winter and spring, so rain, heavy rain can influence what these lakes are doing. So that's probably the biggest difference. Just every year, we often go to the same lakes, but the fishing's not the same, and up north it is.
All right, Chris, how about you, bud?
Yeah, Gussie has some great points there. Like when I go fish, let's say Race Lake, I go to the same waypoints every year, and they're usually fish there. But for example, the St. John's River, it's one in a different area every year. I haven't caught fish in the same spot twice. So the lakes change every year. And a big thing compared to Canada and the U.S. is we go to some great fisheries, but if you don't time it right, like there's maybe a 2-week window where that lake's really good. If you don't time that and hit that window when it's fishing good, it can be some of the worst fishing you'll experience. But in Canada, that they always seem to bite. That's a big thing. Like, yeah, we get cold front, but the fishing's still pretty decent. They got to eat. They only have 4 or 5 months to feed up for the winter. So I think that's a big difference, is kind of a timing deal.
All right, and Corey, so since these guys have basically said basically the same thing, do you think that the coverage you guys get and the amount of pressure that immediately gets put on these fisheries has anything to do with the fact that it's a little tougher down south?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we fished several tournaments at Gunnersville over the last couple of years, and I mean, you go out there and literally hundreds of boats every day, but it kicks them out. I mean, they have a lot of fish in a lot of these lakes, but that's the difference. Is a lot more pressure than we see, typically in most places up north.
All right. So
yeah, and just to add to that, like we might, if you're doing a tournament, you might have 10, 15 boats following you, and they're usually pretty good. But once that tournament's over, they're gonna fish that spot until there's no fish left. So, and the nice thing is with the U.S., they do chase a lot of bait, so they don't necessarily live in one spot. So the next year, that bait might be in a different area. So you just got to relocate them. Where I find up where we live, they live on a certain rock pile or a weed clump, and they don't move around near as much.
So more transitional down south, more structure oriented up in the north, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Corey, you can hear us, okay, bud?
Yeah, I got you. Gussie,
Okay.
I thought Gussie's name was Corey there for a second.
We thought you were frozen, to be honest with you.
No, I'm good.
All right. Vic, give me another question here, hon. Let's see what she's got. All right. Sean Fortier, do you use Canadian baits in U.S. tournaments? Corey.
We flip a jig a lot. It's made by Punisher Jig. It's a small compact jig that everyone uses up in Canada. We flip that a ton down in the U.S. So essentially, yeah, we do use Canadian baits in the States.
Gussie, what's your pick? What's your one bait from back? Let's change the subject, the topic, or the question a bit. Your Canadian bait, your favorite Canadian bait from back home that you work or rely on down south.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that I do around home, it has influenced the way that I fish down south. So, no matter where you go, a bass is a bass. So they're going to be related to some kind of cover or structure. And so, you try to mix in some of the new techniques and stuff that maybe we don't get to do at home, or you can, but a lot of times it's just the same. Like I use a spinning rod a lot more than a lot of the other guys probably when I'm down here. And but as far as baits and everything, it's a lot of the same baits. Like I could go home today and a lot of the baits that I used this past week, I would just be able to go walk straight into Lake the Woods and start fishing with.
All right, and Chris, I'll change it one more time because it seems like baits are baits all the way across North America, but how much does color patterns on your favorite baits change when you go down south, which might be even more interesting?
To be honest, they don't change as much as you think. It's pretty hard to beat green pumpkin, black and blue, kind of your standard colors. You get a shad spawn or something, you might change it up with white, but those are still a staple color, whether it be Canada or the U.S. And if you don't have a lot of time to experiment, those are kind of just a go-to. You put in your hand and go fishing.
All right, cool. All right, Vic, give me the next one here, hon. We've already done that one. So, Michael, obviously you can watch all of this. The boys answered their number one question, or their number one combo, so there's good information there. So Attila's asking, do you think that lower gear ratio reels will make a comeback? Or are high gear ratio reels here to stay? Corey, how you doing there, bud? How's your signal? Frozen again. All right, Gussie.
I'm thinking I have zero use anymore.
I really
gear ratio pretty much. You're cut off for a second, bud.
Timeout. He's in timeout.
No, I mean the trend is for faster reels. Yep. I'm using a 7-to-1 pretty much across the board for everything that I do, and I just you use the same thing over and over again, and I just adjust. I don't even think about it. If I'm using a chatterbait or a crankbait, I'm going to just reel it a little bit slower versus. A lot of times we're fishing fast, covering water, so you want to, get your bait out, fish the juice part of your cast, reel it in fast, and get it out again. And that's where there's just too much advantage to using a fast reel.
Okay, Corey, you're up.
I agree with Gussie on that. Yeah, I agree with Gussie on that. I mean, I've played around with the lower gear ratio reels, and I don't really like them that much, to be honest with you. I'm more of a 7-to-1, 8-to-1 kind of guy. And a lot of the times I find when you're using those lower gear ratio reels, and a fish hits and runs at you, it's really hard to catch up to that fish, and it does cost you losing them sometimes. So I like to stick with that 7 to 1.
All right, and Chris?
They're very, very rare. I'm using a 6 to 1, as they said, mainly because I like to fish fast as well, and I'll use a 7 to 1 or 8 to 1 gear ratio. You can pick up line quicker, you can cover water quicker. There's very few applications, like a big swim bait or something, maybe for that low gear ratio. But so no, I don't think they're going to make a big comeback.
All right, and Attila, if you've noticed, what's happening is you were seeing manufacturers are realizing there's a bit of a niche market, especially the southern guys who do a lot of that dirty cold water cranking want that slower gear ratio. So you're seeing manufacturers offer it, but it's not the focus of their engineering anymore. We're seeing, 8-1 to 1s, 8-2 to 1s, 8-5 to 1s becoming more and more prevalent in the market. And I think as the companies are able to make that technology more durable, which was the biggest challenge in those high-speed gear ratio reels, we'll continue to see more of that high-speed stuff. So basically get used to reeling slower if you want to go slower. All right, next question, Vic. Brian Robertson's asking, I've heard a lot about the Tokyo rig. Any comments from you guys about it? Corey?
I've never used it. I've heard of guys using it and catch a lot of fish and then find out that they never actually use it. So I don't know what to say on that because I've never.
One sec, I got to
Maybe that's a question for a fighter.
Might be a question for fighter. Okay, Chris. While Gussie goes and grabs something, have you heard or used it?
I haven't used it, but I do find it funny. And you have to be careful. There's been tournaments where it was a dominant bait, but like Corey said, you find out that it was on their deck, but they didn't actually catch too many on it. But there's the man to talk to right there because he actually uses it.
All right, so we got the llama in house now. So it's a question about a Tokyo rig. I mean, if you can ask for a better situation and get a better guy to answer it. All right, Seth, how you doing, bud? What's the deal with the Tokyo rig?
It's kind of a power drop shot, in my opinion. Works well flipping, and I know some guys kind of use it in place of a hard head too, especially for smallies. Like put a big weight on it and a little swim bait, and kind of wind it like a hard head when you get super deep.
All right, so it's both species, largemouth and smallmouth?
Huh?
Both species, largemouth, smallmouth, both effective?
Yeah, I flip it a lot in the grass for the largemouths. Not really in my cover water bait, but once I found them, go back, I'll catch them on like a Texas rig or a jig and then go back through them with that and get a few more out of there.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. And congrats. Awesome finish this week, bud. Keep it up.
Yeah. Thanks, bud. All right.
Yeah, he's buying us dinner for the next week straight.
No, that was last night. You missed out.
Steak for everyone. All right, Vic, give us the next question. All right, Justin P. Martin's asking, walk us through your final day of practice setting up for an elite. So your thoughts, what do you guys, are you checking, or are you poking still, or are you searching? Corey, how you doing there? You got this?
Definitely not sticking any, that's for sure. Especially down here in Florida, when you're practicing and you're flipping pads and stuff, 90% of the fish that you're getting to bite are actually on beds that you can't see. So when you're fishing around and you get a bite, you waypoint it, you definitely don't have a hook on, because most of the time you can go back to that exact pad stem and catch that fish that you shook off. But as far as your game plan, for day 3 of practice, that really depends on how your practices went through day 1 and 2, what you found, if you're looking for new stuff, if you're trying to fine tune something, if you're just going around looking for bedded fish. There's a lot of variables in what you're going to do on day 3.
All right, Gussie, you echo those sentiments?
Yeah, pretty much. And this goes back to one of the earlier questions, people asking about what's your favorite color and what's your favorite bait. That stuff's so unimportant compared to actually finding fish. And that's no matter if you're bass fishing or any species, if you're not putting your bait in front of some fish, you're not going to catch anything. So we're high gear pretty much all 3 days of practice because, it's short. It goes by quick. Just to try to find as many places as we can, or groups of fish, or the best pattern. But it's high gear fishing for us, I think, all the time.
All right. So, and just to speed this up a little, so we can get as many people questions. Chris, if you feel like you agree, you could just say, "Dude, I agree with what they've said," and we'll get to the next guy so we can hit as many questions as we can.
Yeah, I agree. And in regards to checking spots on the third day, we probably won't go back to a good spot if we know there's fish there. We're going to fish in the tournament, and you don't want to be seen on that spot. You don't want someone to say, "Oh, I wonder what he's fishing over there," and go check it. So that's a big thing. You don't want to check spots that you know already have fish and risk sticking one or someone seeing you on the spot.
All right, some awesome advice there. So, Vic, let's queue up the next question. Again, folks, before I even ask this one, hit the share button for us. We've been having great viewership this entire time, 53 comments already. If you have a question, I'm promising you this, there won't be many other times where you will have these three guys at your disposal to answer your questions. Let's try to keep them bass, obviously related, tournament related for the guys, since you're going to get unparalleled information from them. So let's move on to the next one. Alicia, how do you break down a new to you lake? So what's your strategy? Corey, is it graphing or is it trolling motor down?
It all depends on the lake. I mean, Florida and Lake Lanier are two totally different things. So you would, in Florida, you're not really going to go out and graph. You got to more fish. But Lake Lanier, you can idle around, mark fish, mark brush piles. So that really depends on where you're at. But I'm not really a guy that does a lot of research on lakes and all that. I just kind of back the boat in and fish the conditions. I don't want many preconceived notions of how I've seen guys catch them on YouTube and all that. It's more for me of just backing the boat in, doing what I feel is right, and going from there.
All right, Gussie?
Yeah, same. Our whole group of guys, I mean, I don't think we do a ton of pre-tournament, research. It's launch the boat and, go try and break it apart. I like to fish offshore. I'm going to look for that kind of bite if I can. If that doesn't exist, then you hit the bank. And a lot of the tournaments are around some stage of the spawn, so that can give you an idea of where to be looking for the biggest number of fish. And the best tip I could give you, in like 2001, I got to fish the Chevy Mercury Championship down in Belleville, and I stayed next to Rocky Crawford in a hotel. And he told me, anytime you go to a new lake, when you're looking for an area to fish, look for the most shallow, the most blue water on the map, and that's where it's going to be the biggest spawning area and probably host the greatest population of fish. And that's pretty good advice.
Chris?
Yeah, they all make great points, and I guess a big thing is just kind of figure out before you go to that lake what stage the fish are going to be in. If it's pre-spawn, spawn, or post-spawn, and that'll give you a good idea where to start. And put the boat in the water and go fishing.
All right, and Chris, we're giving you the hardest end of this because we're forcing you to come up with something new after Corey and Gussie. I'm sorry, dude. I'm going to reverse.
Look at the scraps.
No, if you're okay with it, or else I can reverse the order and put the pressure on your brother. It's up to you.
It don't matter.
Okay. All right, so let's go to the next question, Vic. Sparkus, what's going on, bud? He goes, way to go, guys. How much do you figure out movements of fish beside temps? Corey?
That's just all like high gear, get rid of as many, go through the options of where to fish as you can and figure out a program. But water temperature, unless it's around a spawn event, it's something that we probably never look at. Maybe in the spring, we've all fished Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin a lot, and a couple degree difference in water temperature from one corner of a bay to another can make a difference. But once you hit summer and fall, I mean, water temperature is really irrelevant for me.
Corey?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Chris, anything to add?
No, I just keep looking at Knoxville, and I'm wondering how cold the water is going to be, and regardless, it's just going to be cold, but the fish will bite, so it is what it is.
All right. Perfect. All right, Vic, cue it up. All right, so Lydia's asking, what's your best bait to fish wood? So you're fishing, you got a wood pattern going. What's number one for you, Corey?
Well, number one is definitely a flip and jig for me, a Punisher flip and jig 9/16 in black or green pumpkin. That's the only two colors that I own. And the only other thing that you would fish the wood with, obviously a Texas rig, some guys prefer that, but if there is a shad spawn going on, you have to fish it with either a spinnerbait or a square bill. about it.
Anything to add, Gussie?
No, I mean up north. I'm assuming she means more laydowns and that sort of thing versus the standing timber that we fish.
So
down.
okay, so break down the difference for me. How do you change your approach, Gussie, between laydowns and standing?
I know laydowns. If you're in clear water situation, maybe some pressure, you probably are going to want to have a Wacky rig on to drop around some of those laydown trees. That would be one thing I'd have, and then standing timber. I'd probably go with a spinnerbait. If fish are suspended, it's fairly easy to work it through the limbs where you're not getting hung up all the time, and that would be my moving bait kind of go-to.
All right, Chris?
And one more thing to add, Gussie will appreciate this, is jerk bait and standing timber, but you got to have live scope. It's kind of a game changer. You know what fish have trees, or what trees have fish on them now, and you're literally casting an individual fish. So, and you can do that with a chatterbait or different things, but live scope is definitely changing the way we fish.
Well, the good news for Gussie is Mega Live is coming, so he will be on that train as well.
Well, JP, I went out with
Gussie got first-hand experience yesterday on how to use live scope and use shot.
No, JP, I go out with them we went fishing last night for about 2 hours just before dark, and we caught a bunch, no big ones, just on this little lake where we've been staying this week. And I've never had it on my boat before, so it was my first time. And I beat Corey's ass like 6-1 with it, and so he is screwed. Once I have that on my boat, it's done. He's done.
He's a little scared, is he?
Yeah, it's coming. The hummingbird stuff's coming.
We're going to the bank for most of these tournaments. We'll see who wins in the standings this year.
Oh, there you go, folks. That's what you got to love about these guys. The chirping is relentless. That's one good thing about that group that hangs together. They love to chirp each other. All right, let's move to the next question. Josh Bobick is asking, what best way to prep for a tournament if you can't pre-fish? So you are not allowed on the water or you don't have time. How do you prepare? Corey. Gussie.
I'm looking at the weather heading into the event, and that's going to be the biggest thing. And I mean, we do that a lot when we show up to practice for our tournaments. You might not get to fish your favorite way. I know if I'm going to Lake Champlain this year in July, I can look at the weather, the week of the event. If it's going to be hot and flat and sunny and nice, there's going to be a lot of big smallmouths up shallow, and that goes across smallmouth country. Hot, nice weather in the summer, there's going to be big fish to be caught up shallow. And then if you're looking at a situation where you got some wind and dark days, cloudy, cold, I'm going to want to try and focus on finding fish that are out a little deeper that aren't going to be influenced by that weather change so much.
All right, Chris?
Yeah, and if you're going to a lake, hopefully you have a little bit of experience on it if you're going there for a tournament. And like Gussie said, have an idea what the weather's going to do. If it's sunny and you're fishing largemouth, it's going to push them under structure, mats, trees, and stuff like that. But don't get stuck fishing old waypoints that they were there 3 weeks ago and just keep fishing those. If it's not working, don't be afraid to change it up and try and find some new fish on the fly during the tournament.
All right, and Corey, are you back? Next question.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on a timeout.
He's on a timeout again. Next question, Vic. Okay, Christopher Manso is asking a question from Head Wound Chris. I guess that's his nickname. Hard to believe both brothers are doing the exact same job now, being Canadian. How do both of you explain your drive to get where you are now? Just trying to know how two boys from cold Ontario and no 12-month bass season could end up big-time pros. I think we can add that to all three, but wow, your parents have awesome genes. I don't think that's more of a statement than a question, but congratulations on having awesome genes, boys. Next question, Vic.
Thanks.
Corey froze again. Timeout.
So,
Phil's asking, Gussie, do you fish muskie back at home? What's your passion for muskie?
I have a couple good buddies that have the fall program pretty dialed in. So I usually go once or twice late in the season, and Sometimes a nice night in the summer, I'll go a little bit. But when I was younger and guided a lot at the different resorts on the lake, I did it a lot. It's probably one of the best muskie fisheries in the world. You can fish for them a lot of different ways. And if you've never been there, it's 100% a great place to go. And if you put a few days in out there, you'll catch one for sure.
Awesome. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you a question. Are you and Corey using the same cell service provider?
Yes.
I'm just trying to figure it out because you're right in front of him, aren't you?
Yeah, I can see him in my mirror.
Oh, there he is. Now I can see him. He's back.
Technology. He's probably doing something wrong.
All right. We got another question here. When flipping Senkos, Wacky or Texas? Corey.
That depends on the stuff that you're fishing. If you're fishing heavy cover, it's always Texas. But if you're fishing some isolated stuff and you can get away with a Wacky rig, definitely Wacky rig. So I'm 50-50 on that.
He's right on.
I'll add in, but I think in clear water, especially if you can get away with a Wacky rig, you're going to get more bites. I really only Texas rig a Simcoe when I'm kind of blind bed fishing, especially in Florida and stuff. After that, it's a lot of Wacky rigging.
All good, Gussie? Yeah, Gussie gives the thumbs up. All right, next question, Vic. Mike Scholer's asking, nets, what percentage of bass would you think you would have if you were allowed? Okay, so he's asking basically, if you guys were allowed to use nets, would it improve your catch ratio or land ratio? Corey?
I don't think so. I don't think it would. I really like the no net thing. There's less clutter in the boat, and it's more you and the fish. I was skeptical about not having a net, but now that we don't use a net, I really enjoy it.
Gussie?
To be honest, yeah, you don't. I've lost a few fish trying to grab them, but not very many. I think you fight them a little bit differently, maybe. And I mean, for me, I give them as much muscle as I can and try and get them in. I don't like to baby them and fight them really, for that long. But I don't lose too many of them without the net. I wish we could use nets, just as far as like it's way better for the fish rather than because like we both flip everything unless we have to grab it. If you're using a light hook or something. So from that regard, I mean, you see what some of these guys do to the fish, and it's I don't know. That would be the only reason. It's kind of an archaic rule, I think, but it is what it is. I mean, that's not going to change for us.
Right. Chris, you kind of agree with that with the boat flipping?
No, I kind of disagree. I like the no net rule. It was a learning curve, definitely coming from FLW, and I've lost a couple fish because of not having a net. I think one I think of was a 6-pounder in Gunnersville on a giant spoon. I would have got him with a net, but I think it's way more entertainment and adds to the sport where you have to physically reach down and grab some of these big fish instead of scooping them up with a net. I think it's more entertaining that way for the live show, especially.
I agree. It's definitely more stressful.
Tell everybody about that 6-pounder that you lost because you're stupid and tried to boat flip it when it was hooked in the side. Wasn't the smartest thing I ever tried to do, but it's all right. Live and learn.
Oh, brotherly love. Yeah, and there was actually a thread on Facebook the other day about that because some people are seeing when the fish are being flipped, the amount of steam they have coming in and landing in the bottom of the boat section bent up. So I think it's more I think it's more entertaining. I agree. I think it's more challenging not to use a net. But yeah, when you're boat pumping fish and they're high up in the air and landing on themselves, I can't see it physiologically being all that good for the critters, right? So
and I agree. But even still in our circuit, 90% of those anglers, even if you haven't had a boat, they're still going to boat flip them.
Yeah, I agree. So. Oh, dude, I've done it my whole career. Even when I got a net, if I know it's a 3-pounder and I'm not going to waste time going for the net. He's in the boat before you blink, right? So
yeah,
I agree with that. All right, so here's another one from CF. Hey guys, what is one shallow presentation you have had to dial in down south that doesn't play in Ontario? Corey.
I think a chatterbait. I mean, I'm not saying you can't catch them in Ontario on a chatterbait by any means, but I think that's one that plays big time down here in the shallow water. Almost anywhere you go, you have a chatterbait tied on. So that's a big one for me.
Gussie?
Chatterbait's been the bait of the year for me and back home the last 3 or 4 years. So I mean, I'm 20 hours north of you guys, but it's a good one. For me, it's probably a trap, lipless crankbait. Big, really good shad, imitating bait, and they, are, all of our winter and spring tournaments. There's guys catching them on lipless rattle baits, and just something that I think you could catch fish on at home, but it's not, it's never really like the best option for me. It doesn't seem like.
All right, and Chris?
Yeah, 100%. Gussie's right with a trap. And another bait we use a lot down here is a jerk bait for largemouth. I know we use them for smallmouth a lot, but we don't use a jerk bait for largemouth very often. So that's something you kind of had to learn a bit and use it in some different scenarios down here.
So, Chris, expanding on the jerkbait for largemouth, because I've done it in the winter time in the States, do you change your setup when comparing it to Canadian? Like, do you fish it differently on a different setup?
Yeah, 100%. In Canada, we use a lot of spinning rods. You're working the bait a lot quicker. It doesn't go as deep, and you're really covering a lot of water. With down in the south, it's usually cold water applications, and you're going to work bait a lot slower. I use it on a bait caster with fluorocarbon. It goes down deeper, and you're pausing the bait a lot longer, trying to get these largemouth that are pretty lethargic to come up and eat it. So there's definitely, you work it 2 different ways, 100%.
Okay. Next question, Vic. George is asking, same factors aside, do you prefer a spy bait or a hair jig for shallow smallmouth? Corey, if you had to pick, hair jig or spy bait?
That one's a 50-50 for me. They bite the spy bait like crazy, but it's hard to keep them hooked up. So I'm 50-50 on that. There's some lakes where you cannot get them to eat a hair jig. I'm 50-50 on it.
Now, Gussie, you were one of the guys who really broke open the hair jig thing. So what's your pick on this?
I use both, and I think the spy bait's better for covering water. Maybe has a little bit better ability to like call fish in from farther away. So if I'm on the hunt, like just in search mode, I'm probably going with the spy bait. If I'm fishing like the specific boulder, the spot on the spot, then I'm gonna bust out the hair jig. I mean, it's just a slower deal. But if it's a bait that if I put it right in a smallmouth's face, he's probably gonna bite it.
Chris?
Well, like I said, they both work. If I had the choice and they'd eat both, I'd use a hair jig just because of the hookup ratio. But there's certain applications that they'll bite one better than the other. And you just got to experiment with that practice and see which one works better.
George, the answer is have both. Have 2 combos with both on it, and whatever the fish are eating that day, don't try to force them to eat the other thing.
Yeah.
Louis asking, what topwater baits do you use for slop? Top pick, Corey, for slop fish.
Definitely a Spro Poppin' Frog. That's the only one to use.
All right. Gussie, your pick?
I've been a big fan of the newer Jackal Kiera frog. It's a small profile, but it's heavy, and it's a good one. I can cast it into like really specific holes and spots, and yeah, I just like the smaller profile, but it's still heavy. It pushes down on the pads or the mats, and it's been a good one.
Yeah, and Chris, you agree with Corey, or do you use a different style of frog from Spro?
No, I'll agree with him on that. But to be honest, I'm going to try and punch it and catch them that way. I think a lot of times you get bigger bites, the fish won't come through the mat, especially up in Ontario we live. I'm going to try and punch it first.
All right. Next question, Vic. Daryl Holloway, what's the go-to bait when bass have lockjaw? So, Corey, they're being dicks that day on the water. What are you throwing at them?
Something finessey. Largemouth or smallmouth. Yeah.
Okay, let's do one of each. Number one, when they're being asses, what's your number one bait for largemouth and smallmouth?
I would say probably a drop shot of largemouth and a weightless Wacky rig Senko. And then for smallmouth, I would say probably a Ned rig.
Okay. Gussie?
100% for me, same bait for both species. Z-Man hula stick on a 1/6 jig head. And that, in the last 5 years, I've caught, probably twice as many bass on that bait than everything else put together that I own. So I catch a lot of fish on that. It's tied up everywhere I go. And that's my like Ned style bait that I always use.
All right, and Chris, your picks?
Pretty hard to beat what they said, so no comment.
Okay. No comment. All right. Marcel Newsey's asking, flipping, skipping jigs around wood, braid fluoro or braid with a fluoro, braid, fluoro or braid with a fluoro leader? Corey.
I'm definitely using braid whenever I can, but I definitely have fluorocarbon tied up, and I always have. Well, the last few years I've been playing around with the braid to fluoro leader. I did catch some fish on it this week at the St. John's, sight fishing with the braid to fluoro leader, but everyone has their application. I have usually all three tied up, but when I can, I'm going straight braid.
All right, Gussie.
I'm a braid guy too, but around like just straight wood, I like fluorocarbon better, 20 pound. And the reason why is it's less likely to like dig into the wood, where, the advantage to braid around grass is you can cut the grass, but the disadvantage around wood is that braid can like dig into it and then give you some issues if you're trying to pull a big fish through it. So just straight wood, I'm going with fluorocarbon straight up.
Chris?
And I think a lot of it, like they said, but a lot of it depends on water clarity as well. If dirty water, you can go away with braid a little more, but if you're fishing clear water, I'll go fluorocarbon almost all the time.
All right, several factors. Let's get the next question up, Vic. Colin Deisman's asking, what's your favorite bait for a Simcoe smallmouth? Like, any of these guys are going to tell you the truth, but let's try it anyways. Corey?
The most consistent bait is, for me, probably an Ed rig and a tube. I mean, it's hard to beat. Gobies and crayfish are all over the bottom of that place, and to me, that's what we catch 90% of our biggest fish on.
Gussie?
5 of diamonds, Daredevil. I've never
come sooner or later.
Before, so that's what I'd start out with.
So Gussie, when you're on Lake of the Woods, you fish them a lot differently. Simcoe's fish and your fish are really more pelagic. They're chasing bait around Lake of the Woods. Give this guy your number one pick for those fish.
Well, so that's the cool thing about Lake of the Woods. We got all these different basins, and there's some areas where there's so many crayfish that it's like the bottom's moving. Big time crayfish factor. So just the Ned rig or a small green pumpkin bitsy tube, tough to beat. And then some of the lake trout water, the clear water, I'm using a 5-inch Z-Man jerk shad, and just on like a 3/16 ounce jig head to swim it, and a 3/8 to drop it down on top of fish that we see on the graph. But that's a deadly weapon for us.
And you've been doing that. You did that with the Fisherman Boys. I mean,
like
over a decade ago.
Early 2000s. That's
That's
dusted a lot of bass up there.
All right, Chris, for you, what's your pick? Top bait.
Was it Lake Simcoe?
Yeah, so let's go Simcoe, Chris. Yeah, top bait.
All right. Well, there's really only 5 or 6 rods you need on Lake Simcoe, to be honest. You got a spy bait, hair jig for covering water, drop shot, Ned rig, tube, and if you're around fish, any of those days will work. If you're not around them, you're not going to catch any.
Chris, do you ever power fish them on Simcoe, or it seems like every approach you've got is more on that finesse side? Do you ever throw, like people talk about 3/4 ounce spinner baits or jerk baits? Do you ever do that?
I used to, and they used to eat it. I think they're too well educated now. You might get a couple follow-ups. You might get the odd one to hit, but I will power fish with those. So it's hard to explain. I'm power fishing with those finesse baits. I'm covering water, and then when I get an area that I find I'm getting fish or seeing some, then I'm slowing down. But I'll fish really quick with that spy bait, and they'll eat that and cover water.
All right, some great advice there for those of you trying to figure out. And that advice from all three of these guys works everywhere. Gussie is taking his techniques to Lanier and doing very, very well, doing the same stuff he does on Lake of the Woods, and these guys are applying that Simcoe knowledge to the Thousand Islands and everywhere else. So lots of great advice there, folks.
Lake St. Clair, pretty well any smallmouth fisher you can use the baits, and you've got all the basics covered.
All right.
Like Chris said, there's basically 10 baits that is all we use. So it's pretty simple.
Folks, you are listening to our Canadian Elite Series contingents that just had a great tournament down in Florida. They each cashed their checks, which is what they need to do all year to keep it in it, and they're all in great position for the Angler of the Year race. We would love to see a Canadian take that home. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. If you guys can do me a favor, share this. Click the share button. It takes really 2 seconds of your time. Help us get the word out. We've had a phenomenal audience the entire time. We're 50 minutes into this. We're going to keep these guys going for just a little bit longer. So if you have questions, hit us up. Put it in the comments. So Jennifer has a question here, boys. Top 3 techniques for bass fishing tournaments in Ontario. Is there one technique that you constantly see anglers doing incorrectly or ineffectively? So let's concentrate on the second half, because I think you guys have talked about your top techniques. But what do you see people making the most mistakes with fishing incorrectly? Corey?
Definitely flipping a jig. People, I mean, there is an art to flipping a jig, whether you believe it or not. It's people are casting it out too far. They're not working it correctly, and there's a lot of times aren't throwing the jig in the right places.
All right, Gussie?
Yeah, biggest thing for me is just I notice some people just fishing too slow. Like in Ontario and up north in general, we have really good fishing, and the approach that I would take, and I know these guys take, is we fish fast and look for biters. You know, there's no hole sitting waiting for them to bite or waiting for them to show up. It's just cover ground, look for biters, and then know when to slow down when you find the juice spot, the spot on the spot.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, there's no letting it soak, like Gussie said. Like, fish up north, if you put that bait in front, they're going to eat if they're there. And if they don't want to eat, move on, find fresh fish. And don't work slow, like Gussie said. Fish all the high percentage areas. If they're not there, move to another high percentage spot. Don't slowly kind of meander through areas. Just go to the sweet spot, fish it, then move on to the next one if you're tournament fishing.
Yeah, and it's something, when we watch you guys live, we see a lot of the Florida events. It seems as though some people talk about the cold fronts and soaking the bait, especially when you're flipping hyacinth mats or the reed heads and stuff like that. But 90% of the bites are coming within the first 2 shakes of the rod for most guys. Do you find that's true down in Florida? Like, just put as many pitches in there as possible?
Yeah, I definitely think so. But the only time where that's not true is like this week when they're spawning. That's when you want to slow down and fish really slow. But other than that, cover as much water, make as many flips as possible.
All right. Vic, question? Nathan Jameson's asking, best way to approach large grass flats? So that needle in a haystack. How do you guys break down a large grass flat, Corey?
It's some of that is idling and marking the edges and looking for irregularities in the edge of the grass, whether it's holes or hard spots or topped out hydrilla, something that's different. That's the biggest key to breaking it down, and you can do that by idling it or by actually fishing it. So there's a couple different ways to do that.
Yeah, Gussie, you agree there?
Yeah, same deal. Yeah, he's got her.
Yeah, I agree. And something that's super easy that is visually you can pick up if it's a matted grass. Usually go to like the thickest, brightest yellow piece, and it's burn out the most, and that's probably where your highest percentage area is going to be.
Yeah, and a piece of advice I got a long time ago, that if you're around in the spring before the weeds start growing, sometimes it's a good idea to idle that, because you can find those hidden boulders or logs or stumps that are inside that weed bed, and if you mark those, that's the gold. Yeah. That's the juice, right?
Hard spots on the grass flats are the key, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's go next question. Christopher Manso, do you guys use rattles in your plastics, and do you use scent at all? So let's do this separately. So first, let's go through. Corey, rattles or no rattles?
No rattles.
Did you say no rattles?
No rattles.
No rattles. Gussie?
Nah.
Chris?
We go through so many baits, it just would be inconvenient trying to,
Yeah. Okay. So
And-
now
and
scent. Who believes in scent here? Anybody putting scent on their stuff, Corey?
No scent here.
Gussie?
Plano makes a little jar that you can put, it's for like the gulp juice kind of stuff. And I'll often, I bought in like cans of gulp juice, put them in these containers, and they're leak proof, and throw a bunch of my Ned rig baits and smallmouth baits and let them just soak in that stuff. But I'm otherwise, no, I'm not like a religious scent guy at all.
All right, Chris?
Not a scent guy at all, but I am starting to be a little bit of a believer in the smallmouth. I don't spray any scent on them, but certain plastics that are impregnated with scent might have a little better success than others. So I am, but I'll never carry a jug of spray with me.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I don't put rattles in my baits if they don't have them, and I don't put scent on my baits. But if they have scent, I really don't care either way. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to go out of my way to put it on there.
Most
And
of the time, like we're not going to use a plastic without like salt in it, and that's most of the good baits have salt in them. And that's what I mean, if a bass eats that, it seems like they don't spit out a salted bait very well.
Yeah.
And in regards to the rattles and stuff, like you said, when you pitch into a jig in a hole or flipping a tree, they usually hit it on the fall anyways. They're not examining it, smelling it, or seeing if it rattles. They eat it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Vic, let's go next Facebook one. Andrew Howie's asking, what's your approach to post-cold front conditions in the summer? I assume Andrew's from up your way, isn't he, Gussie?
Yeah.
So we're talking Canadian waters here. Corey, what's your post-cold front strategy up here?
Man, I fish the same way no matter what it does. I flip a jig and milfoil. So to me, it doesn't matter. Our fish bite. Like there's, they're not like southern fish. They bite. So when you're around them, it doesn't matter if it's a cold front, post-cold front, pre-cold front. I'm going in the milfoil and flipping a jig.
Gussie?
I think Andrew's probably talking smallmouths, and I mean up where we live, it's just probably dropping out a little bit deeper. That's the main thing, and be around those high percentage spots, those points, edges, mouths of shallow bays, but just drop out a little bit deeper and probably just go with a Ned rig style bait, and you'll be good.
All right, and Chris, anything to add?
Yeah. And for the smallmouth, yeah, if there's a cold front, you might not be throwing a top water that morning or something. Like Gussie said, just push out, and you're going to have to get something down to them. Maybe you can drop on them with on the ground or something like that.
So it seems as though even Corey, if Corey's flipping a jig in the milfoil, it's the vertical presentation is far better than the horizontal after a cold front. So stop using moving baits.
Correct.
Concentrate more on stuff that go up and down.
Yep.
All right, next question. Marcel is asking, to Chris and Corey mostly. I guess, well, this one, yeah, that makes sense that it's to these guys mostly. Best bang for the buck Daiwa reel for flipping jigs.
I'm going to say my reel too.
I'm gonna say the Tatula. That thing, I mean, as you guys seen all week, that's the only reel I use. So the Tatula is definitely the best bang for your buck. It's a super smooth, long cast and reel, and you can do every technique with it.
Okay, Chris.
The Tatula SV. It's basically like a anti-backlash. You cast into the wind. You can get a lot further distance with this reel, and it's a great value to put that technology into a price point reel. You're gonna outcast any other reel and not have to worry about backlash. And so that's my go-to.
All right, Gussie, we're giving you the rear end on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going with Shimano Metanium, and that's a high-end reel, but awesome for jig fishing where you want to be able to feel what your jig's doing on the bottom, feel bites. So they're just, very tight, and it's amazing how much more sensitivity you have and how much more you can feel stuff when you've got a good quality reel. And for jig fishing, that's important.
And it's no doubt, and regardless of your manufacturer you support, because there's a lot of great manufacturers out there, you get what you pay for the most part when it comes to fishing reels and rods. I mean, people say they can argue the price thing, but yes, you can catch fish on lower end stuff, but you do get a lighter, stronger, usually more sensitive blank or a lighter, stronger reel for more money. So anyways, let's move on to the next question. Kyle's asking smallmouth, shallow or deep, and why? Like this, we could do an hour and a half on this, but okay, let's just pick your
One general rule.
one general rule. Corey, smallmouth, shallow or deep?
I mean, I prefer to catch them shallow, but I also love catching them deep. So, if I had to choose, I'm going to catch them shallow.
Shallow. Gussie?
100% on the weather for me. If it's sunny, beautiful, nice weather, I'm going shallow, 100%. If it's dark and cool, cloudy, windy, I'm getting offshore.
Okay, Chris?
Exactly what Gussie said. I prefer to catch them shallow. At those days, you can have the best shallow spot in the lake, it seems like, especially in our area in the Great Lakes or Simcoe. And if it's sunny and calm, they'll be everywhere. If it turns overcast, windy and rainy, it'll be like a ghost town. You got to go in deep. So you definitely got to watch the weather.
And that makes it really easy for anybody who wants to fish smallmouth just to look at it. Bright bluebird skies, no wind, push yourself shallow. And if you're in 8-footers like Chris was when he won on Lake Ontario, go deep and puke. Pretty simple choice.
Yeah.
We've all been there, Chris. I cannot do that stuff anymore, man. My stomach does not take it too well. Next question.
To be honest, that was the first time I've been in that stuff a few times, especially the Kingston Open. That was the first time I was actually kind of feeling nauseous. And I think it was because I was so dialed in on watching my electronics and live scope is how I was catching a bunch of them, that I would just have my head down. And my cameraman, he was puking at the back. So that was the first time I've actually felt nauseous doing it.
Dude, your camera guys at any series should be paid way more, because looking in the viewfinder in that kind of stuff is it's the curse of all curses. I mean, it's the one thing you don't want to do.
Yeah, I felt bad. I didn't even know. But I'm like, maybe just get sick and you'll feel better. He's like, I've already been sick 5 times. The one time he was getting sick, and mid-puke, he picked up the camera and started filming because I had one on. So I don't think they get paid near enough. Okay,
I'll ask you guys a question. How many camera guys have puked in your boat? Or co-anglers, for that matter, back in the FLW days?
I don't know that I've ever had one.
Really? Gussie?
No, I've never had one, but
no. Chris, other than your camera guy in this recent event?
No, that's the first one.
Impressive.
I don't have any good stories of a hungover co-angler or anything like that. Nothing.
Impressive. All right, so Randy Hall. Randy, what's going on, bud? In a deep northern lake with not a lot of the same structure, how do you pattern fish? Probably not a lot of structure, let's just say. So deep northern lake, he's probably meaning those basin lakes that are kind of rocky and deep. How do you pattern your smallmouth, Corey?
You put your trolling motor down, turn your light scope on, and go looking.
You looking for bait in those deeper lakes, Corey?
You're looking for the fish themselves. I mean, with that live scope, it's deadly. You can see them. It's you can't really miss them, and that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
Gussie, for you?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Chris.
No, I'll add to that. Just what Corey said, but go up points and find the fish suspended, maybe around bluffs, and just look for them just outside that stuff on live scope, and it's unbelievable once you start using it.
And Gussie, you've been doing this well before even side imaging was around. So for someone who doesn't have the advantage of a lot of dollar electronics, how did you find them all those years ago?
I mean, honestly, it's just like my general rule is if it's sunny and nice, I'm going to go fish shallower. And this goes all year, like all into September on those deep, clear trout lakes. If it's nice out, the biggest fish will be shallow, I think. And then if it's a day where you can't see that good, if it's cool or windy, then I'm going to start looking out with and use my electronics on my eyes. And we often don't fish really until we see the electronics are so good now that, and if you don't have them, then they're going to be around the points and the reefs and some sort of structure. And, if there's not much in the lake, then it should be easier to find them just because they're going to be on some piece of it. And then the other thing is the weather, like the wind, wherever the wind's blowing in, that's often, sometimes it's no fun fishing in the wind and you want to get out of it. But with smallmouths and clear water, you better be fishing where the wind's blowing if you want to catch a bunch.
Some great advice
Yeah,
there.
and,
All right, so
just to add to that, like a couple good search baits are, if it's sunny and calm, like Gussie said, throw a top water. You might see a fish blow up chasing bait. Throw a jerk bait or swim bait if it's got a little chop on it, and just fan cast all around these areas that he just said. And, you'll find them.
all right, so we got a bunch of questions from Instagram as well here. Let's go start taking those ones. Jeff's asking, what tournament are you looking forward to most in the circuit this year? So if you have to pick one on your Elite Series schedule, boys, what's the one you're most chomping at? Corey?
Thousand Islands.
Gussie?
Yeah, I'm 100% the St. Lawrence River for sure, and I've only fished there twice. Like we've been there the last 2 years, it's super fun. I mean, there's a ton of water to explore, lots of fish. You can catch them however you want. That's it for me.
All right, and Chris, even though you are the first Canadian ever to win an Elite Series on the Thousand Islands, is that the one you're looking forward to again?
Yeah, I think so. I'll look forward to that one. But Champlain's going to be fun as well, but definitely Thousand Islands.
All right. So another one, Mark is asking, this past weekend, what type of structure were you guys focusing on and why? Corey?
I was focusing on areas with some cleaner water, just so I could actually physically see the fish on beds and be able to see if they're paired up. And you know, if I was seeing smaller fish, I wouldn't even stop. I'd just keep going until I found one, a big female that was paired up and ready to go. So that's what I was looking for.
All right, Gussie, where were you focusing on, bud?
For me, and this is typical of wherever we fish, but I like to figure out a way where I can catch limits, catch fish quick, and also I'll figure out, you know, what's the best way to catch bigger fish. So for me, it worked out pretty good in that we had a really short first day because of a fog delay, and I had a flat in front of a spawning bay where I could catch them on a jerk bait, and I was able to get my limit pretty quick. Survived that first day, and then the second day had a lot more time, and I just pretty much flipped all day and caught a pretty good bag. That was definitely a way better way to catch big fish. So that's what I was doing. Flipping pads with a 1/4 ounce tungsten and a stick worm, and then punching mats with 1 1/4 ounce, you know, in a beaver style bait.
All right, and Chris, structure you were focusing on?
I did 3 different things. One was flipping pads, like Gussie just said, with the same setup. The other one, I was blind fishing in canals where you know these fish are going to spawn, but the water's a little too dirty. And I just blind fish that stick bait kind of dragging around. You kind of look and see where you think a fish might spawn, and then you fish that area very slow. I was also throwing prop bait in those areas. Sometimes they eat it, other times they'll come up and swirl under it, but you know their bed is right there, and then you slow down and fish it. And I also did a little bit of sight fishing as well.
Perfect. All right, another one. Cool. Adam's asking, is there a lake you'd like bass to add to your current circuit that hasn't been included yet? Corey?
Somewhere in Canada. Well,
Simcoe.
Never happened. Simcoe. I would love that, but that'll obviously never happen. But I don't know. That's a tough question. I'd love to go to Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. And Sturgeon Bay, yeah, that would be what I would say. Sturgeon Bay in May.
Sturgeon Bay in May. Gussie, for you?
Yeah, we've all spent a lot of time there. It's and had great events and great fishing. For me, I'd probably go with Rainy Lake. We share Rainy Lake with Minnesota, and it's a big enough body of water to host one of these tournaments, and it would be a place where I'd have a bit of an advantage on everybody. But like for me, the closest tournament to home that I've got to fish, like pro tournament, was the Mississippi River. It was like 10 hours from home. Like that's the closest spot. So for me, it's I'm never going to probably have a home field advantage in one of these things. But
Actually, another one, JP. We were kind of talking about last week or something. It'd be really cool to see bass go to Lake St. Francis, out of the native reserve on the U.S. side.
Out of the Akwesasne area, yeah.
Yeah, that one would be really cool.
Yeah, that fishery is. I mean, Gussie, you've experienced Franny as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I fished it a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's the St. Lawrence, but a confined area, but just phenomenal fishery as well. So, yeah, that would be a good call as well, Chris.
That'd be a nice change of scenery from the St. Lawrence on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. I almost feel like the St. Lawrence is big enough to split up. You know what I mean? There's so many miles with 70-plus miles of fishable water. It's harder now that the border's closed because it eliminates the Canadian side. But when both are open, you almost want to see a lake event and you want to see a river event separated rather than having it.
I'd be
right?
fine with that.
Yeah, it's just because, you know, if the lake is open, you can't compete in the river. It's hard to compete. I'm not going to say you can't, but it's hard to. It's harder to compete. So it would be nice to see that as well. Yeah, Vic, you can throw some more through Facebook. I'm going to do one more quick one for Gussie. John's asking, are you still guiding, Gussie?
Yeah, I do a little bit. You know, just when I have time. A lot of it now is with repeat customers that I've taken for years that I have fun with. But yeah, I mean, I do some trips in the summer, little bit of deer hunting stuff in the fall, and then a little bit of ice fishing if it, you know, schedule permits. But like, you know, that's taken a hit here in the past year on all fronts, and just, you know, hopefully this mess will be over soon.
Right. All right. So we got another one from Dakota here. Crankbaits on the St. Lawrence. How effective can these baits be? What type of structure do you look for? Water temp, time of year, are they most effective? There's a whole pile of questions in there, but let's clean it up. Crankbaits on the St. Lawrence, Corey.
Never had one tied on, never made a cast with one on the St. Lawrence.
Gussie?
Honestly, I never have either. I'd be
Chris?
too scared to land those big fish on a crankbait. No, for me, it's a Carolina rig, a Ned rig, a tube, and a hair jig, and maybe a spy bait. That's it. That's
And probably a drop shot somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris?
I can't say I've ever made a cast with one.
All right. Well, you have three of the best, and no one's throwing a crankbait. All right. Another question.
You can't catch
And
on it, but
exactly. I'm sure you could, but it's just I don't know. The water's so clear, you got to make some
percentage
now. It's just not the best. There's a lot of places where crankbaits dominate, and we've all fished events where we've gotten our – because, like, in Canada, we don't use crankbaits a ton, and we've all fished events where we've gotten our tails whipped by guys cranking down here, and we've seen the events where if you're not using a crankbait, you're going to get – there's no way you're going to compete. And but at the St. Lawrence, it's just not, like, set up that well for cranking.
It's not crankbait friendly.
It's not crank. But we've seen guys do well. We've seen KVD throwing one around. We've seen Keith Combs fish, Elite Series events using nothing but a crank and do very well. But for you guys, it's confidence and it's the things you can catch them on no matter what, basically.
And it's like you said, it's a style that we fish. That's not my style.
Yeah. And it's funny, I had to talk yesterday with Belat, Cooper, and Eric Luzak, and we talked about that. Are you better off fishing your strengths rather than trying to figure out how to do something that guys have been doing their whole lives? Do you feel that's the same thing where you guys fish?
For sure. I mean, you're always going to have more confidence in what you do the best. So, and that's a thing that I've learned over the last few years is do what you're good at because you're going to have more success doing it. Whereas if you try and do something that other guys are doing to catch fish, it doesn't always work out very well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Al Clark's got a question here. Can you discuss your live scope setup? So for Chris and Corey, what are you guys using? What size units? Are you using 2 up front? And are you using the perspective mode or the forward mode? Like, what are you using more?
I'm running 2 Garmin EcoMap Ultras up front, both 10-inch units. I've got 1 unit set up for mapping and my down imaging, and the other unit is strictly live scope. And then that's it. That's the setup.
Okay.
And just
Chris, same setup?
Well, there's same setup, and then there's different gains and color contrasts that work. But I usually get the gain around 60%. And when you're fishing deep, clear water, let's say you're looking for smallmouth, you can put your range out further. But if you're fishing more structure, and a lot more stuff going on, whether it's grass and stuff. If you bring your distance in shorter, you get to see more detail. But for smallmouth, I'm usually 100 to 110 feet. I'm looking in front of me, trying to see them.
All right. Next question, Vic. Adam Gregory, if you had to choose one, spot lock or shallow water anchor, power pole anchor?
Without a doubt, I'm going with the power pole anchors.
The big boat wrap has a lot to do with that. And you know what, Corey? Honestly, it's either or now, isn't it? It's become a choice.
Well, yeah, and I mean, for the amount of times that we're fishing shallow water, like to me, I would use the power poles a lot more than I use the spot lock. But there is times where you absolutely need the spot lock. So,
yeah, so is it a both thing? Yeah. Is it a both? Has it become a both where the perfect scenario, kind of like live scope and down imaging, or 360 and live imaging scope has become you need both, right? Sure. To have everything, you need both. But if you had to pick, so is shallow poles or spot lock become that as well?
It has. I mean, you have to have both. There's like I said, there's so many scenarios where you're fishing offshore now, and you need to have the spot lock, but I just find myself in more situations where I need the power poles rather than the spot lock. And for example, this week in Florida, I don't think I used spot lock once, but I use my power poles 100 times a day. But we might go to Knoxville, and I'll probably use my spot lock more than the power poles. It really depends. You get both.
So is it the water depth, Gussie, that dictates more than anything?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I definitely use the shallow water anchors a lot more down here in Florida, but for me, the Minn Kota spot lock, greatest single invention thing that I've seen technology-wise come along in fishing. And I do a lot of guiding. I like to fish offshore. If you got to bait someone's hook, take a picture, cull fish. You just hit the button, you're not moving, or you find where the school of fish is and you just tap it. We're locking it down right here, and greatest thing that I've seen come along. But for doing what we do, we fish for a living, we need to have both, and they're both very important tools.
And I think it's a lot like you're seeing with rod and reel. There's great rod and reel manufacturers from every side. There's great electronics manufacturers now from every side. We're in a good time for this. Corey, I mean, we know that you're with Power Pole, and it's been a phenomenal product. It really hasn't... everything I've heard about them, phenomenal customer service, everything's great. You guys are going to recommend, obviously, Power Poles. Now, more recently, Gussie, they have Raptors. Have you tried the new Raptors?
I've got Talons on my boat this year. I've used them for 10 years, never had a single issue ever. I like that I can just hook up 2 wires to the battery and I'm good to go. So for me, that's the route I took. I'll probably get the Raptors next year. I fished with Seth one day last week, and he's got them on his boat, and they're beautiful. I was impressed. I kind of, after being in the boat with them, I kind of wish I got them, but they are a little bit quieter than the Talons. But the Talons, like function-wise, are awesome, and never had a problem for me. So I don't love change. If something works for me, I'm gonna just keep riding that train as long as I can.
Yeah, there you go. All right, another question, Victoria. What key areas are you looking for when you're targeting summertime largies? Matt Wolfgram's asking. Corey looks frozen. I'm not sure if he is or not, but it looks like it. Gussie, what do you look for in the summertime for largemouth?
I mean, just they're going to be around grass as long as you got some. And if it's a good largemouth fishery, there's going to be grass. At that point, it's finding where there's hard spots or where there's holes or just something different. And that's, you fish fast to try to figure out, is it reed clumps? Is it, weed edges, weed lines? Just figure out where the greatest number of fish are, and hopefully you can put a pattern together and ride it.
All right. Chris, not sure if you're frozen there.
Send them, JP. Kick them out of here. We'll finish this off.
All right, another question. Darren's asking, is there a mistake that happened in the tournament that still haunts you to this day?
Oh, yeah. We all have dozens of those, Darren.
Sorry, you're breaking up there, JP.
Yeah, it's on your end there, Chris. Go ahead, Gussie. Finish that one off. So give me your one.
Oh, man. Just like I can remember fish from when I was a teenager in small tournaments at home, like a 4-pounder that touched the net and never made it in the boat. I finished second in a bunch of events where, I had the winning fish on. I've missed $10,000 checks in these U.S. tournaments, one fish, one bite away. Probably 2017, I missed the Forestwood Cup by like 9 points, and there was only one day all year I didn't get my limit at the Mississippi River of all places that has 1 million fish. I only had 4 fish on the second day. If I would have had my limit, just another pound, I would have moved up enough places. I would have made the Forestwood Cup that year. So that was probably that day I wish I could have back. But yeah, there's Lake Lanier a couple of years ago. I led the tournament the first day, and this is my favorite lake in the south. And the second day, I somehow managed to bring 2 fish to the scales. And I think I could probably go to that place 100 days in a row and catch my limit. It was just, I made some mistakes, and it costed me.
But you learn from them, right? That's really the end result. Is if you're learning from them, it's still valuable. If you're not, then you're just repeating history, which makes you not that bright. So take it as a learning.
Like for us, our consistency, like for all 3 of us now fishing down here, is a lot better than it was, in the early years when we started. And I mean, Chris and Corey came into it probably a little bit more experienced than I did when I started. And I, luckily did well enough, cashed enough checks to keep doing it. And now we're all fairly consistent as far as, we all probably have 1 or 2 of those bomber tournaments every year, and that's just the nature of what we're doing and going to all these different places. But consistency is the deal if you want to be able to hang in here and stick around for sure.
So Chris, the question was, you were frozen there, but the question was there a tournament moment, like a disaster in one of your tournaments that you remember most?
Yeah, you usually remember those more than you do the big fish catches, to be honest, the ones that got away. For example, that one I mentioned on Gunnersville with the spoon, and it was just stupid on my part trying to boat flip it when it was hooked in the side. There's lots of those moments, and I kind of heard what Gussie said, where the one just got away and it cost you winning that tournament. And I can think of one on the St. Lawrence River when I finished second to Mike Fraser. I had probably 5 or 6 different fish on throughout those 2 or 3 days that were 4 or 6 pounds and lost them, and those cost me that win. There's lots of those moments, and you remember those like it was yesterday.
And I'm sure if Corey was with us, he'd be talking about the few that he missed on his final day at St. John's as well, because he had a definite shot at making that top 10 final day if it wasn't for a few fish.
Yeah,
all right, so
it happens to everyone.
We got one here from Instagram as well. What means more to you guys, a classic win or the AOY? I mean, it's 2 different things, really, but what would mean more? Or why are they different?
I mean, a lot of anglers say Angler of the Year, but for me, I want to win the Classic. It's triple the money. It's $300,000, and I mean that just to have that like moment of this, and
fireworks and confetti and.
That's the one for me. That's the dream come true right there.
Chris?
That's hard to say. Like, yeah, the AOY is the most consistent angler, and everyone wants to win that. But that Classic, being on that stage in front of whatever 10, 20,000 people, and just having to go down in that moment is pretty special. So I think I'd take the Classic win.
Yeah, I mean, there is no other show on earth like the Classic. There really isn't. I remember sitting in the stands with you, Gussie, before you got a chance to fish it, and you were like, "One day, man, that's what I want right there."
Yeah, and I was like, I'm pretty emotional. I was like tearing up watching that. Like, it was like the last one that Kevin Van Dam and Ike Kelly fished, and who knows if they will again. And it's emotional being in there, like how loud and awesome that arena is, and how bright the lights are, and it's.
Well, and you got the greatest MC taking care of things. Mercer does such a great job amping the crowd up. The money they spend on production in the Classic is second to none. So it's a combination of things. And listen, you guys all fished your first one last year, which was awesome to see you there, and you're all fishing it this year. So
no, it is. That's our, big goal every year is to make sure that we make that. And, it's, you gotta have a good year. It's hard to make it. And then, yeah, Mercer is awesome. And I mean, everyone in Canada knows that, but like when you see it, watching the video of it does no justice to how good he is in person, how loud, he just gets everyone fired up and loud and very likable. He's a pro and the best I've seen it doing the MC thing.
Yeah, it's like he was made to do that job. And I know you guys spend a lot of time together down there, but I don't think people up here really realize how long his day really is when he's down there. Between blasting you guys off in the morning to, having dinner with you guys, his day is a pretty long day.
Yeah, for sure. No, he works hard when he's down here. And it's early mornings. He's the first guy down at the dock in the morning. And he prepares a lot more than people think for doing his job too. I mean, he knows he knows something about all the anglers and has relationships with all of them. It's a lot of work to do that. So it's very impressive watching him do his thing, and you don't really realize it until you actually see what he's doing when you're in person with him. It's impressive for sure.
I think the biggest thing.
Much though, Gusty.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. He usually buys us dinner when we go out too. So he
feeds you.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing that's most impressive that people have said about Dave is that he makes it about the angler and not about himself, which we've seen in the past with MCs where they try to be in that limelight. Dave is the guy that kind of steps away from everything and makes the highlight the angler.
Yeah.
Right? With all his research and everything else. So, very, very cool. Here's a question. This is an interesting one. I'm curious to hear the answers about this one. Can someone make it fishing down south without sponsors? Chris?
Yeah, 100%. It's not an easy go. There's a few people that have done it. There's more that have crashed and burned trying to do it. Doing out visas, sleeping in their car. I did it. I had some sponsors, but I did most of mine when I started going to the Costa Series in the U.S., mostly out of pocket, and just kind of progressed and paid for my next term of winnings. It is possible. But you better have, if you're doing it in your pocket, you better have a job where you can come back to. Maybe if you got a month off, you can go to work for a month.
Yep. Gussie, you experienced the same thing?
Yeah, it's the reality is for any one of us up north that goes and tries to make it and do it fishing down south, there's going to be hardships the first few years. And it seems like if you can get through the first 2 or 3 years and not have dug yourself a big hole, then you can kind of make it work. And the reality is it's tough to get paying good sponsorships within the fishing industry because everybody's budget's already tapped out and hammered, and it's tough. So the best advice I could give is to get some help and maybe initially try looking outside the fishing industry. And I know for me, I never would have got to do it unless I had some help. And I had a friend from Minnesota that I guided a few times fishing and hunting, and he owned a website, KrugerFarms.com, that he basically paid my entry fees when I started out, and that otherwise I never probably would have done it. And he passed away in 2015. Got sick, and it was brutal. And Kruger Farms is gone now, but I just caught that break and got some help, and that's what kind of got me going. And I've done well enough to kind of keep doing it. But we've all had, I've had some really good friends that I met and made through the FLW days, and I had a bunch of buddies that tried to make it go and just threw it all on their visa. And then the problem is you get 2 or 3 bad tournaments in a row, and they're $5,000 entry fees. You dig a hole really quick, and if you're a regular guy like most of us, it's tough to you're just going to lose the fun part of it, and then you're not going to fish as well, and that's when the disasters happen.
Well, financial pressure is definitely, it does affect your tournament angling. And what's the old saying, right? The fastest way to become a millionaire when you're fishing is to start as a billionaire, right? Like that's, you want to make $1 million, start with 2.
Yeah. No, it's expensive to do it, and to, to do it right and have all the gear and all the equipment. You know, the guys you're fishing against have all the best stuff, all the best equipment, and you know, you definitely need to have everything at your disposal if you want to be able to compete on a whole season and all the different fisheries that we go to.
So here's a good to have you back there, Corey.
Yeah, glad to be back. I just want to let you guys know I just cracked the AC on in the truck.
Yeah. Okay.
Just something to add to Gussy's statement, JP.
Yeah,
Everyone
go ahead,
always
Chris.
asks, when do you think like it's time to go fish down in the States or move up to the next
That's a good one.
circuit? And I think some people jump the gun, and if you're not doing well consistently in your local derbies and kind of progressing there, don't think you can go into someone else's backyard 10 hours away and take their money. You got to kind of establish yourself and then keep moving up the ranks. I think. Otherwise.
Yeah, well, I think, and so the point there, Chris, you broke up a bit, but it's like, yeah, make sure you're dominating where you are before you try to go out and step on into someone else's backyard and compete with them, basically. So,
Yeah,
okay, so let's.
I don't know how much you heard, but yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. We got the gist of it. Trust me, Chris. And it's great advice. You need to really be at the top level where you're from, and not just a one lake wonder either. At that point, don't be that one guy that only fishes one lake. You better be able to catch brown and green on different styles of bodies of water. Be as diverse as possible if you expect to compete down south.
And one other thing,
And
JP.
I think there's some great. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm just saying there's a lot of great Canadian anglers that are coming up through the ranks, and I think you're going to see more guys fishing these top level tours, and it's going to be pretty fun to watch.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Gussie. You had a point there?
Yeah, and the other thing, like I get a lot of questions, you know, how do you make it? How do you fish for a living? How do you get sponsors? But like for me, number one, you better be able to catch fish, and that's the most important thing. Spend a lot of time on the water. That's number one. That's if you're not fishing every chance you have, you're gonna get behind on these guys. And it doesn't matter if you want to make a living as a guide, as a tournament fisherman, whatever it is. You've got to be able to catch fish, and that's time on the water is the number one most important thing. If you do your job in that regard, the sponsorship stuff, the meeting people, all that sort of just comes with you know being good at what you're doing.
So I did see one question here from Joey asking, and this is an important one. Are sponsors ever a disadvantage?
Sure they are. Absolutely. In some cases, like you look at the electronics right now. There's so many guys right now that want to have the best of everything, but every other brand has something good. So guys are you know dropping electronic sponsors and running whatever they want so they can have the best of the best. So you know in some cases being tied down is a disadvantage. And,
right. You guys
just
agree?
To add to that, there's different things like different boats. Some have benefits in certain fisheries, and some might not hold up in different like scenarios. Like a aluminum boat might not be as good 8-footers as a glass boat. I'd be scared to death to go out in it. But he can also go into different culverts and shallow water reservoirs and stuff I can't get into.
Yeah, and there is no perfect answer. I don't think you can pick a category in fishing, and no one has the best scenario for everything. They don't have one product that does everything.
But I think for baits and stuff, if that's he's asking, like, say, personally, I'm sponsored by Spro. I'm going to use their baits every chance I get. But if there's another hard bait that is working and I can use it during that tournament, a lot of sponsors now are okay with, okay, use that if you need to. If it's going to get you a chance to win that tournament, you can still use it. So in regards to baits, the sponsor's usually pretty good with letting you use what you want. But if you have the opportunity to catch it on your bait, obviously do that.
Okay, so going aside from that, I'll go to Gussie on this one, and you guys can answer as well. How important is it for you to have faith in the product you're sponsored by? I mean, is that you guys all have top-level sponsors? Like, there's no joke. Nobody has what I would call a suspect or a subpar manufacturer in your roster. But how important is that in making your decision?
Well, I mean, it's just way easier to tell people this is a great product, and I'm really lucky. I mean, I'm using G. Loomis rods. They're no question some of the finest fishing rods you can get, and Sims. I mean, make the best rain suit in my opinion that you can get, and I love my Lund boat. It's important to have sponsors that that you use their stuff and believe in it. And I'm pretty lucky now where I haven't had to have a lot of turnover in sponsorship stuff. And but it's tough. Like, it's more grindy for me now than it was 5 years ago. Just in maintaining the sponsorship stuff that you have, there's just a lot more competition out there, and there's a lot more, requirements, and these guys are expecting you to do your job, whether it's a certain number of social media posts, whether it's attending a certain number of in-person events, but just to maintain keeping everybody happy, it's a lot of work, and it's you better be willing to work and do these kinds of things to satisfy everybody.
Yeah, and Chris and Corey, you guys feel the same way? I mean, it's...
Yeah, no, what Gossi said is perfect. And for example, you hate telling people, "Oh, I caught it on this bait," and realistically, you never thrown it for the last month. Or like I'm with Under Armour, they got a great rain suit as well. But I see other companies, and they're like, "Oh yeah, use this rain suit," and I know people that wear them, and they're soaked right to the butt. And like, you don't want to be lying to people saying use this, and they try and they use it, and they're soaked. So
and that's
goes for different companies, yeah.
And it's funny, like with social media now, everybody's tough and is willing to put up their their 2 cents and their opinion. But like, I had a rain suit sponsor like 10 years ago, and they came out with this new suit that was pretty expensive, and I'm on Facebook telling everybody this is the best rain suit, this is the one you got to get. Well, like a couple months later, the barrage of messages start coming in. These rain suits weren't that good, and I got a bunch of messages from people like, I got the suit, I paid $500 for it, and I'm soaked on the first trip with it. And so you don't want to lie to people. With the live stuff now, especially in covering our tournaments, if you have a good event, I mean, people see what you're using, and if you're telling people some BS, they're going to call you out on it, and that's not very fun. So
I agree, and for all of you guys, I mean, the biggest thing is, including myself, we're all accountable more so than we've ever been with social media, and you don't want to make someone spend their hard-earned dollars and buy a product that is going to fail, which is why I feel all you guys have very reputable sponsors in your stable. It's just harder to get someone to say, yeah, you better buy LiveScope because it'll change your life, and if it's not really that good, you know what I mean? Like, you got to deal with someone spending $2,500, or you got to tell them about a rain suit, like you said, or a set of lures, or a rod and reel. So, Corey, you probably feel the same way about all this stuff. I mean, you still got to answer, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Chris and I, and Gussie as well, I mean, we will not represent a company that we don't have 100% confidence in their product, that it's a good product, a quality product, strictly because we don't want to, have someone buy it and then come back to us and say, "Oh, you know what, that product's shitty." So that's just not how we do it.
Yeah, it's true, and it's the honest truth about what you guys do. Listen, people have to realize you guys make your living doing this. This isn't a pastime that costs a little bit of money. You're investing tens of thousands of dollars in a year, and your partnerships with your sponsors is a very vital part of making it viable. So people have to understand you have to do what you're doing with sponsorship, but there's also some guys that I've seen that will tell you to buy stuff and they don't care. It's the snake oil salesman routine, right? They're going to give you the bum goods on a product, and they don't care if you don't like them afterwards. And that makes it hard for the consumer as well.
Yeah,
it does.
All right, so any more questions, Vic? Harlow, okay, I wanted this one actually, so I'm glad you brought this one back up. So Harlow Larkin's asking, if you can only fish one lake for the rest of time, which one and why? Gussie.
For me, 100% Lake of the Woods, where I live. I mean, you couldn't pay me to live anywhere else in the summer. If anybody is considering like a fishing trip this year, especially like people in Ontario, There's a bunch of resorts on Lake of the Woods that everything from do-it-yourself little cabins to 5-star accommodations. It's just an amazing place to fish for just the variety. Really good smallmouth, some largemouth, but one of the best walleye muskie fisheries in the world. We got lake trout, crappie, pike, phenomenal ice fishing. It's just a great place to live if you like to fish.
All right, Corey, one lake.
I'm gonna say probably Lake Ontario and the Thousand Islands. To me, there's just so much water to explore, and you can catch largemouth, smallmouth, do whatever you want. And there's, I mean, you could never cover that whole place in a lifetime.
Chris?
Well, it depends if I have to fish Lake Ontario or Simcoe in the winter. If I have to fish those in the winter, I'm gonna pick a lake in Florida, like Okeechobee or Kissimmee, Toho, because you can fish them all year round. But I'm going with one of those two, either Lake Ontario or Kissimmee, Toho.
I'm with you, Chris. I want palm trees around me when I'm fishing, so that just gives you that 12-month a year. Gussie loves his ice fishing, and I don't mind it, and I know you guys enjoy it as well, but Gussie's like a hardcore ice fisherman. He is really, for us, we do it because we have to, for the most part.
That's because he lives in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing else to do. Yeah.
That's what happens when your lakes get thaw in June, right? Like it's an inevitability. Matt Davidson's asking, in low visibility areas, what's the best setup for smallmouth? So if you got low vis and you're not using your eyes, boys, what's your setup? Gussie?
Like, are we just talking like dirty water, or are we talking?
Let's talk. Let's say dirty water.
Dirty water. I'm gonna go with some baits that make some noise. A chatterbait, 1/2 ounce chatterbait, and cover some water, and then have a tube probably to drop on the boulders on a log, just stuff like that. We do have some dark tannic water up where I live, and top water too makes some noise. And generally in darker water, fish are going to be more likely to be up shallow and around cover.
All right, Chris?
Yeah, definitely a chatterbait in dirty water. I think the smallmouth will crush it. And that's when you might get into some crankbaits and stuff. Shallow, rocky stuff. That's when your crankbaits, I feel like, are going to excel.
All right, Corey, for you?
Yeah, Dave, Gussie, and Chris pretty well nailed it.
Yeah. All right. Another question, Vic? Next one's not until... Okay, I got it. Okay, so Adam Gregory's asking... when you hit the Canadian, one from YouTube, from our YouTube viewers. What are your thoughts approach on high flow rivers like Detroit, St. Clair? I'm going to throw St. Lawrence or Franny into this. What's your approach, Gussie?
Well, so when I went to the St. Lawrence River 2 years ago, that was my first time there. First time fishing that kind of heavy current. And the thing I struggled with the most was I'd catch a fish and then I'd want to spot lock and cast back to where the fish came from. But even with a 1/2 ounce weight, I mean, your bait's under the boat before it finally hits the bottom. So the biggest thing I learned was just to use the current to drift and make your bait be natural, and then drift over the juice, run your big motor back up, do it again. Drift, drift, drift.
Chris?
Just what Gussie said. The more you can present your bait in a vertical presentation, as long as I find you get over that 20-foot mark, especially in the St. Lawrence, if it's too shallow, it won't work. But over 20 feet, you need to have a vertical presentation. If your bait is digging into the bottom and your line's going across the bottom, you don't get near as many fish.
And Corey, let's switch the gears. So they talked about fishing deep in the current. What about shallow?
Shallow, I mean, you're looking for rock piles. You're looking for isolated weed clumps, that kind of stuff. And that's a lot of the times when you're throwing some reaction baits to maybe just to get a look at the fish, not to necessarily catch them. That's about it. Kind of maybe getting out of the current, trying to find some eddies, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, try to find places where the fish can kind of avoid the current, kind of like a trout in a river where they have ambush spots. And
for sure.
Yeah. All right. Vic, next question. Sean Forche, for all, even me, what are your do's and don'ts of getting in a tournament for the first time for a beginner? Gussie.
I think I mean, anybody now, if you want to start out tournament fishing, you're gonna take some lumps the first when you're not gonna just walk into it and start beating these guys that have been doing it for a long time. But you learn 100 times faster actually fishing and competing in the events. It forces you to fish in any kind of conditions that you might be faced with, and that's how you're gonna get better. You got to go do it, and then, if you really want to be good at it, you got to be out there every minute that you can, that you're able to, and put the time in on the water, and that's the recipe. That really is for being successful. You got to fish a lot, and it's guiding, it's tournament fishing, any of that.
Chris, do's and don'ts for a first-time tournament angler?
Yeah, just like what Gussie said, get out of the water, put your time in, and the biggest thing is time on the water. Practice for the event. Don't just show up blind and think you're gonna go win. And there's also some great avenues to get in tournament fishing now with all the Bassmaster clubs. Co-angler, the terms with co-angler, you get to go with a pro, and you're gonna learn so much more on the water with a pro than you would fishing by yourself. So there's lots of different resources now you can use to learn a little quicker. But on that note, I gotta get some gas and stuff, so I'm gonna check out here. I appreciate you guys having me on the show, and get some gas and get to red fishing.
Good luck, bud. Have fun red fishing. Thanks for your time today. Obviously, we appreciate it very much.
All right, thanks.
We're gonna
guys.
keep rolling here while you guys do this. I think Corey's still there. Corey, you got the last one on the do's and don'ts. What are your do's and don'ts for a first timer?
I mean, I think for a first timer, just make sure you're out there having fun. Don't expect to go out there, win the first tournament, but at the same time, you want to be learning. You want to be out there sucking all your knowledge in. But for a first timer, go as a co-angler in a Bassmaster Open or a BFL or something like that, where you're going to learn a bunch and you're still going to have fun. And that would be my best advice.
Okay, and then for me, do's and don'ts, first-time angler. The do is fish your strengths. Don't try to do something you're not good at. So fish your strengths is the do. The don't spot mooch people. Don't be that guy that runs around a lake looking for the anglers who are hot on that lake and marking their spots and being that person. Because to me, that's the lowest form of tournament angler that's out there, is the one that goes around. We all know them. They have nicknames. People call them the Road Runner, beep beep, when they drive by you with the GPS, or they call you the spot mooch.
Who do you call that?
What's that?
Who do you call the Road Runner?
Who do I call the Road Runner? I've just heard the term. I don't know who it is, but I've just heard the term.
Okay.
Don't go getting me in trouble now, Corey.
All right.
So anyways, don't be that guy. So the do's, fish your strengths, fish what you're good at, and expect to take your lumps like the boys said, but don't be a spot mooch. That's my do's and don'ts.
Yep.
All right, Vic. Yeah, you got another one there, Vic? So Lee King's asking, sorry, we lost it. How do you prepare for a lake you've never been on? Break it down. Okay, we kind of went through this. Lee, so for everybody watching this, this is going to live on both the YouTube channel for CSFL TV. It's going to also live on the Spring Fishing and Boat Show page. So you can go back. We've been talking for an hour and 47 minutes, believe it or not. So you can go back. And I know these guys we're taking time out. Gussie's got a lake behind him, and he's in Florida. And I'm pretty sure he's going to want to pitch a few jigs today or throw a bait.
Yeah. I'm actually I have a friend, a gal that I grew up with, and she lives down here now, about an hour away from where I'm at. And they've come to the weigh. They always come to the weigh-ins when I'm fishing down here. And one of her neighbors has a 12-year-old that's really lives for bass fishing. He's starting to do his first high school tournaments this year, and he's fishing with like 15 and 16-year-olds. He's really keen. And I'm taking him out this afternoon, so should be a fun afternoon.
Well, see, and people don't realize that level of commitment you guys have to that, and that's awesome. I mean, getting kids into fishing is really what we're all in this for. We want to grow the sport. We want to make it a little bigger. Things like Andy's doing, who Andy just popped up. Hi, Andy.
Hey, guys.
Just, things like this. Seminars, giving people pieces of your knowledge. Again, I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to let Andy sign you guys off, but thank you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure, as always. And good luck for the rest of the season. I want to see all of you qualified for the Classic, and a win each would be nice, just to, notch it up a bit.
Yeah,
Andy's
thanks. Love you, man.
Hey guys, just got a couple of questions that came to my mind while talking to you, and Corey does a lot of the Canadian Open stuff, and JP has as well too, and I know that you've fished a lot of Pro-Am style events, FLW and stuff like that, but like some of the guys have a hard time like stepping up to that pro level, and I don't know if it's so much of giving up the spot or giving up the tactic. Like, how do you guys get your mind out of that? Like, how do you guys not think about that? Like, you know, to make yourself competitive where you're afraid to go to a spot because you might be giving up a spot.
I think it's just the nature of what we're doing, and like I mean, we're in the business to teach people how to fish and catch more fish, and if we can do that, that's part of the job. And you know, we've given up some good, you know, some of our good spots that we might have had, you know, been able to keep to ourselves for several years, and then in a tournament, when you want to go try and win, you got to give up the goods, and hopefully when you do that, at least you take advantage of it. You might win the tournament and maximize, you know, what it is. But I don't know.
The other thing about that is, I think JP kind of touched on it earlier, is the person that you're taking fishing better have the respect that, you know, this guy's worked extremely hard to be able to go out, put me on fish, and I'm never going to come back to this spot. I'm not going to tell everyone about it. I'm not going to tell them how he caught them. I just, you know, glad to be out there, had a great day of fishing, caught a bunch of fish, and I think, you know, sometimes that respect kind of lacks a little bit.
Yeah, and you know what? You're learning that method could be the method, and what the I guess what the spot is consisting of can be used in other parts of the lakes, right? So
yeah, learn the pattern, Andy. More than anything, they should be absorbing how the pro does it, why he's doing it, absorb how his approach to the spot is. Those are patterns that can be applied in other places of the lake. It's not about gaining the spot. Because I'll tell you something, if you go to a spot and Gussie or the Johnson boys are on it, they're still going to thump you on that spot. All you're going to do is ruin it for them. Right? That's what ends up happening, because it's not about the spot. It's about how they're catching them and how they make adjustments throughout the day to varying conditions that make these guys great. It's not because they have a bunch of GPS points on their units. It's because they know how to catch them. And you can't teach that by showing someone a spot.
And like when you fish, whether it's, you know, your circuit, Andy, or what we're doing, I mean, my tournaments at home, I mean, the anglers figure out who the weasels are pretty quick, and they're not going to be part of the fun of why we do this. I mean, I love the social aspect, and we make a lot of friends fishing in these events and doing it. And it, you know, the guys that are weasels, then you just, you know, they're going to not be included in the fun part of you know, outside of the fishing.
And I mean,
well, we've had a lot of guys. Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
When it happens to me, like, I make a point of telling the person, and maybe they don't know that they're doing something wrong, but, you know, I make a point of telling them, because they're going to think about it the next time, you know. And it's not me being a dick. It's me trying to make a living and do what I do. And, you know, people have to have the respect to go out, find their own spots, do their own thing, and learn.
Well, and here's a point to it, and this will prove it. Gussie and Corey have won multiple events on their home lakes. And I'll call either Simcoe or the St. Lawrence for Corey. I mean, how many Canadian Opens between him and his brother? And Gussie, how many tournaments have you won on Lake of the Woods or surrounding areas? How many times have you won the tournament on the exact same thing in the exact same spot as the last tournament you won?
Never.
No. It's not the spot. It's the angler. And that's what proves it is these guys will find the fish where they are at that given time and what they're eating at that given time and learn how to catch them.
And make it work.
Yep.
So just leads me to another question is, you know, like sometimes, and even at your level now in the elites, like when you're going into a lake that plays on people's strengths as far as smallmouth, largemouth type of conditions, weed, rock, mud, color, are you still playing against the fish? Or does it now become you're competing against anglers that are good on that lake? Like we always hear, you're not fishing against the other anglers, you're fishing against the fish. But in situations and strength, is that still the case?
I mean, you're definitely fishing against the fish, but I mean, you're also fishing against the other guys. You know, you got to catch them, and you got to catch them really good because, I mean, everyone in the Elite Series is as good as it gets. So, at the end of the day, you're fishing against the other guys, but you got to do your job and fish against the fish even better.
Dusty?
Yeah, I mean, there's times when, you know, if I know like this one little stretch that I'm fishing, it's part of Corey's routine as well, or, you know, part of his arsenal spots. I mean, I might try and get there ahead of him if I know he's going to fish at a road docks or whatever. That part of it plays into it in some places, but generally it's, you know, we just try to do our thing, and you hope in your practice that you figured out a bit of a program and figured out how to catch them, or you go into the tournament day and if you haven't figured it out, you just hope you make the right decisions and the right calls and get it figured out. But yeah.
So who's going to win the next tournament?
Who knows? It's going to be a grind. It's going to be it's going to be tough fishing. It's going to be cold. You know, I hope it's me. I want one of these trophies so bad, and so does Gussie. You know, we've been all over the first and never got it. So, you know, as long as it's one of us.
So, being that Chris took the first Canadian trophy in the Elites, right? What's the goal? I guess it's got to be the Classic. Who's going to be the first Canadian to win a Classic, or who's going to be the first Canadian to win Angler of the Year? Is going to probably be the next two big trophies I guess you guys are going to want to take home. But you know what, guys, I do want to thank you guys, and I'm not going to put you on the spot. JP, like always, you've done a great job. You really have.
Well, yeah, stick around, everybody. I'm doing the product review for Zodius and Vanford coming up as we're live here. So, don't go anywhere. Yeah, so
we're going to do a couple of commercials. Corey, how far are you from your lake? Are you far from where you got to be?
About an hour and 10 minutes.
He's over halfway there now.
So, do you guys have personal places where people can maybe reach out to you guys and ask you questions, like off time?
Yeah, for sure. Just on Facebook and Instagram. Find me on there, and I get questions quite often, and you know, I'm usually pretty good at answering them. So you know, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, cool. Here. If someone sends me a message on social media, when I get a minute, I'll get to it 100%, and I get them all the time. So no problems there. Fire away. We're
gonna get you guys up on a CSF all night, and I'll do you guys individually just to kind of talk to you guys a little more personal. This was incredible. The amount of information that JP dug out of you guys was really good, and I'm sure
it wasn't me, dude. It was the guys asking the questions. They just answered.
And it's going to be helpful to a lot of guys in summer fishing and everything. And we want to wish you guys all the best of luck. We're behind you guys. Trust me. A lot of Canadians are rooting for you guys. There isn't an event. I don't get texted. You see what Corey's doing? You see what Gussie's doing? Like, they're all rooting for you guys, right? So, guys, good luck to you guys, and keep it going strong, all right? Thank you.
Yeah, good luck, boys.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys having us, and anytime, we're here.
There it is. All right. I think we're going to end this one. So, folks, I don't know if we're going, Vic, are we going to commercial, or what are we going to do? You could just type it in the chat. I can go right into it if you want. We got everybody here right now. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This is awesome. Share the feed for us, please, because this was a ton of information. A lot of people got questions answered by three of the best. So we're going to run a quick Yamaha commercial, and then I'm coming back, and I'm going to be talking about the new Zodius that was redesigned by Shimano and the new Vanford spinning reel. And then also, I believe at 3 or 3:30, Jason Barnews is going to be doing a live release or fish maintenance or preserving your fish, basically, in tournament situations. So fish care, which is always a great talk, especially if you're into tournament fishing, which so many people here are. So, let's watch this commercial and then stick around. I'll be right back.
To me, it's about priorities. I'm never going to look back and wish I had spent more time in the office. So I look for chances to disconnect, to reconnect with what's important, to remember what life's really all about. So make a splash. You never know where it could take you. Yamaha. Conquer water.
All right, we're back. That was quick. Nice. Awesome Yamaha commercial. So again, folks, thanks. If you're just tuning in now, obviously we just had Chris Johnson, Corey Johnson, and Gussie, who just had a phenomenal event on their first Elite Series event of the year, all cashing checks. Corey with the highest finish with a great start to the Angler of the Year race, which Corey just narrowly missed out last year, had a good run at it, has had a couple runs at it. So we're wishing these guys the best of luck. For me now, I'm going to do a product review for you. We got a couple new products, always that we talk about, and the newest one being Vanford from Shimano that was reintroduced. So let me go through this because I think with this product in our market, this MGL spinning reel, Magnum Light spinning reel, is really an impressive thing that has a lot of tech that's been dropping down. With the guys, we talked about the fact that new tech is becoming more and more pervasive, and there's so much good product on the market. This one has trickle-down technology that's come from Stella, and I'll quickly blow through everything for you. So Shimano reintroduced Vanford, and the biggest thing is people are like, oh, it's a new reel. Essentially what it is a Stratic CI4 that has been rebranded. And the reason they rebranded this reel is because this reel here, they felt the CI4 Stratic needed its own legacy. And by doing that, instead of falling under the Stratic name, which has been around forever, they created the Vanford name, and that is the new legacy of the Shimano Stratic CI4. Big thing about this reel, like the Shimano CI4 Stratic, was that it has the CI4 body. Okay, so that is a carbon interfusion body, very lightweight, very rigid. The thing about this reel that really changed is the MGL rotor. So it's got a Magnum Light CI4 rotor, and what that does for you as an angler is it has very low startup inertia. Sometimes when you turn the handle on a spinning reel, you feel there's a little bit of resistance there because of the weight and mass of the rotor. This one, it just starts turning instantly. It's got low startup inertia, which makes it a perfect reel for so many situations. Breaking it down really quick, Hagane gear, so it's got the cold forged aluminum drive gear, that one-shot stamped aluminum drive gear. That is the Micro Module 2 drive gear. So that drive gear is actually a new pattern in the teeth. It's the same gear that we have in Stella, in Twin Power, in Xsense, in Stratix FL. Actually, we added it to the new Ultegra that was reintroduced as well this year. So that is our top-level cold forged drive gear. Offers longevity and power. X-Ship as well, part of the Hagane system. So X-Ship is basically a double bearing supported pinion gear, so that has it. I've already mentioned the MGL rotor, but inside the body, what makes it also unique is they've added silent drive to this reel. Where silent drive is they've taken the tolerances between the gearing, between the pinion gear and the drive gear, and made everything tighter and quieter. So more transmission of power, more smoothness, more longevity of the gears. The other thing, propulsion line management. When we talk about casting, propulsion line management is this area right here. It's that angled spool that they have, and what that does is the angle on the spool does not have the line hit as hard when you're casting. It lowers or decreases the size of the loop when you're casting so that you're getting less friction on the first stripper guide. So it's all about line management. The long stroke spool is a new addition that came down from Stella, and that is a taller spool than the traditional CI4 Stratic that you would see. And what it does is it allows the reel to do less line changes back and forth on a cast, therefore making line management better and improving casting distance. It's also got AeroWrap 2 when we're talking about the spool features, which means that the spool goes up fast and down slow, creating an X pattern. So if you're a guy like me that likes to fish a lot of braids, that helps the braid from cutting in on hook sets, and it helps with casting. We mentioned the CI4 body, the SARB bearing, so 6+1 SARB bearings in the 500 size, 7+1, and that's shielded anti-rust bearings in the 1000 through 5000 size. And it also has X-Protect. So X-Protect is basically a labyrinth system. Think of it like a maze that stops water penetration in vital areas that can get into the reel. So this makes this reel between carbon interfusion body, CI4, so Magnum Light rotor, and X-Protect. It is great whether you're an inshore saltwater guy or you're fishing smallmouth finesse. The other thing to notice, there are 2 new sizes in this reel. We've never seen these sizes in this high end of a reel. There is a 500 size, but there's also a new 2000 size. So I'll break down the sizes for you. The VF 500 is, like we said, a 500 size, really designed for 2, 4, and up to a maximum of 6 pound test, Or if you're fishing Power Pro, I would recommend the 3, 4, or 5 Ice Tech, or up to 8-pound test maximum. It's going to hold 105 yards of 8-pound test, the 500, so still plenty of line. The 1000 and C2000 are the exact same size body. The difference is the C2000 actually has a deeper cut spool, so it's got higher line capacity. And the main difference is, if you look at them, if we're talking braid, it goes from holding 75 yards of 15-pound test to 115 yards of 15-pound test on the 2000 compared to the 1000. The other thing you have to notice with this thing when you're looking at it, people say, oh, 2000 is going to be perfect for smallmouth. In my opinion, in finesse situations, it's the ultimate reel. It's only got 7 pounds of drag, which is perfect because a reel like that, I typically fish with 8 or 5-pound Power Pro, most likely 5, and I fish with 6-pound and under fluorocarbon. So having a 7-pound drag curve is phenomenal on that reel for finesse situations. And then the 2500 also comes with the regular spool, but they got the C3000 that has the deeper cut spool. And between the two of them, the difference is, again, line capacity. The weight is practically the same. They're both 6.3 ounces, which is ridiculously light for a 3000 size spinning reel. And then the 4000 and C5000, again, same thing. Same body, deeper cut spool on the C5000. The one change that happens in Vanford when you get beyond 3000 and up is it goes to the cross carbon drag. So, from my experience, I've used everything from a 500 to a 3000. If you're going to be fishing finesse techniques, I recommend 2500 and under because there is not much smoother than the felt drag, especially when you are using very light lines. If you're fishing like dragging tubes, or you're fishing harder running fish, if you're an inshore guy doing redfish, or you're carp fishing with a 5000 or pier fishing Chinooks, I would go to the cross carbon drag. So 3000, 4000, or C5000 sizes. The weight is really the big deal when it comes to it. When we talk drag, as soon as you go from 500 at 6 pounds, the 1000 and 2000 are at 7 pounds of drag, and then you go to 20 pounds of drag when you jump to the 2500 and the C3000, and then 24 pounds of stopping power for the 4000 and 5000. So that is the new Vanford. Again, it has been hitting retailers. The demand has been so big on this reel that it's been tough to keep in stock. So if you see them, don't waste much time on them because they do go quick. The other redesign we did this year was Zodius got an upgrade. It still has the same great blank, that high power X blank, which is that cross carbon overlay that they do on their material. So the big difference, this was really the first X pattern rod you saw in the market, was high power X, and it was developed on our saltwater side, but they implemented it into the freshwater world, and they did a really good job of it. And what high power X is, it's a traditionally built rod blank, but they're using a carbon tape, and they're going up the blank at a 45-degree angle and then up the blank at the opposite angle, creating that X that you can visibly see. And you can see it right here. When you look at the rod, you know it has high power X. So what does that do to the rod? Basically, when you create an X pattern, it's much like the structure of a triangle. It stops ovalization and it really reduces the twisting that happens in traditional built rods. Traditional built rods are built with a horizontal and vertical graphite sheet material on a mandrel. They're doing that, but then by adding this X pattern, you're stopping on hook sets or casting the twisting that traditionally happens even when you're fighting fish where the guides will roll. Okay? You've heard spline before. I've heard it for years since I first started fishing about the spline of a rod. Well, that X really reduces the amount of effect the spline has on a rod and keeps things in line. How does it help you? Makes your casting more accurate, your hook set's more powerful. It really is a really great thing, but most importantly, it improves the durability. High Power X is a reinforcement on the rod blank that makes them more durable as well. The other thing, CI4 handles, so reel seats are CI4, but the biggest upgrade happened at the back half of the rod. And you can see right here, it's the carbon monocoque handle. Okay, so the carbon monocoque handle is a carbon handle, one piece, flares out, it's hollow, incredibly lightweight, but it transmits vibration better than anything I've put in my hand. And this technology came from the Poison Adrena rods when they were released last year or 2 years ago. This is a very big game changer for any technique that you need sensitivity. And the reason being, when you pick up a rod, when you're holding it, that carbon monocoque handle runs right along the side of your forearm and transmits all the sensitivity of that rod right into where it's touching you. So not only is the handle super sensitive, being CI4 material, the reel seat, the handle back end also transmits a ton of vibration and feel. So when you talk about models on this, there was one other thing. The biggest question it's the little things that anglers worry about, but the biggest thing people asked for was a hook keeper. Yes, the new Zodius rods all have hook keepers as well. So model-wise, let's see what we got here. So I'm going to flip this up. Victoria, put me full screen, please, if you can. See if you can switch this over. If she's even there. Vic, can you throw me full screen? Wrong one. The other one. Not the Zodius full screen, me full screen. There we go. All right, so we got it. So for models, there's a couple new models that happened with Zodius, but really starting in casting, there's a 6'10" medium, a 6'10" medium heavy, a 7-foot medium heavy, and then there's a new one. It's a 7'2" bait finesse. So you're going to ask, what is bait finesse? Bait finesse is a technique that's very prevalent in Japan, and it is where they're using these rods and reels that are designed with, the reels have low line capacity. The rods are designed to be basically fish finesse presentations on bait casting. I mean, if you're from the South, you probably realize how much guys in the South hate spinning rods. It's unbelievable. Up here in Canada and the North, we're very used to them. We realize they're, the things you can use them for, but the bait finesse rod, there's a 7'2" medium light bait finesse bait caster, which is a new addition to the Zodius lineup. And then there's also a 7'2" medium heavy, again, and a 7'2" medium, and a 7'2" heavy, and a 7'5" medium heavy, and a 7'5" heavy. So everything from 6'10" all the way over. When we talk about, you can bring that up if you want again, the screen, if you want, Vic. I'm going to go bigger on the screen, and I'm going to blow this up for you guys so you see the entire lineup. It is a very comprehensive lineup that they have done with Zodius. I'm going to bring this down. So there's all the casting rods that I mentioned. Okay, you can see that, and the retail on them is $199 to $219 US. That's US dollars, so it'll be a little different here. Probably around the $259 to, I'd say $249 to probably $279 range Canadian. In spinning now, there's two rods, in my opinion, that are, when it comes to fluff, like throwing a marabou, throwing a spy bait, are big players. It's the new 7-foot light and the new 7'6" light are two new additions. So there's a 6'9" medium light, 6'9" medium, 6'9" medium heavy. There's a 7-foot light, medium, medium heavy, and then there's the 7'6" light. The reason I like the light 7'6" is because the length of the rod is really great for casting 1/8 ounce and under baits, like a small jackal rhythm wave, a spy bait, a hair jig. It's phenomenal for that. It's got a super fast tip, lots of backbone, but it's light, so you can fish light line on it, which makes a massive difference. And then all of these rods are one piece. So for those of you looking for that two-piece market, typically in higher end rods, you see more of the one-piece approach. And everything from that midpoint down, you start seeing two-piece rods being developed. And then obviously Fuji Elkanite guides, and the tip guide on these rods, the new Zodius, is SIC, which is the hardest, lightest, strongest, most expensive guide you could put on a rod. So that is the tip guide on them. So that's about everything, guys. I mean, those are the two new products from Shimano. I know that dealers, retailers have been going through them. You can swap me over here if you want, Vic. One thing I can say to you, COVID's been an absolute train wreck for so many small businesses, small local businesses. What I can encourage you as the province starts to open up is support your local retailer. They need it. Guys, I know that there's online stuff, but the brick and mortar costs money. Okay, it costs money. You pay rent, you pay hydro, you pay staff. So the more we can support our local brick and mortars, the better off they're going to be. These are the guys that are going to get this kind of product first. And, there's also an added bonus of local knowledge that comes with some of our great stores that we have all over the province. So what I would suggest to everybody is, as things open up, I am first and foremost going to hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to encourage everybody to support local businesses because I think it's needed. I think what Andy's been doing here and Victoria, Vita, and Nicole with the entire Spring Fishing and Boat Show was much needed. I'm thankful they're doing this. I love talking to you guys. I miss all of you and talking to you guys at the show and giving seminars, but we were able to get you some great information today. So again, guys, I thank you. If you have not shared this, please share it. There's a ton of great information from Gussie, Chris, and Corey Johnson in this talk. And yesterday, share yesterday's as well, because there's a ton of great information from Belat, Eric Luzak, and Cooper Gallant. So there you have it, guys. I hope everybody has an enjoyable day. Don't forget, Jason Barnews is on this afternoon talking fish care. We'll talk to you soon. Be good.
Hey everybody, Bobby Belmonte here from Peterborough Pro Tackle. We're super excited to be part of our first spring fishing and boat show here. Just wanted to show you guys a few of the products that we carry in store and that can be purchased online at ptboprotackle.ca. An exciting new product from Shimano that we have in stock is the new 2020 models of Shimano Zodius rods. They come with the new handle design, a bait keeper, which was a super highly desired feature that's been added, and for under $300, you're fishing with basically a top-of-the-line rod. A great pairing for one of those new Shimano Zodius rods would be the Shimano Vanford spinning reel. Equipped with a long stroke spool for further casting and the MGL rotor and spool for a smooth retrieve, this is an awesome reel to check out this year and add to your arsenal. Another great pick from Shimano would be the SLX line of reels and rods. Two cool features of the SLX MGL would be, again, the MGL spool that it's equipped with, along with a micro module gear system, which makes it a lot smoother when you're casting and retrieving. And right now we are actually having a promotion where if you purchase any Shimano SLX reel of any of the models or a Shimano Nasky, Sahara, or Sedona spinning reel, you can get one of the Shimano SLX rods at 50% off, which is a tournament ready rod at an affordable price. Next up, from another one of our most popular brands, Daiwa, we're carrying the Tatula CT line of reels. This is the new redesigned 2020 model. With the MagForce and the T-Wing system equipped into this reel, it makes a great entry-level baitcaster. Pair it up with the Tatula XT baitcaster rod, and you got a great combo to use. An in-store exclusive from Daiwa is the Kage MQ spinning reels, equipped with a monocoque body, previously only found in their top-of-the-line models. A rod to pair up with this reel would be one of the Daiwa Rebellion series rods, lightweight, sensitive, and at an affordable price. One of our show specials that we're having here is 20% off all Daiwa products in-store and online. Check out our website at ptboprotackle.ca to take advantage of all our show specials, as well as to keep up to date with all the new products that we're getting here in the store, from brands like Megabass to Z-Man and much more.
Hi, my name's Chris Johnston. I'm a Bassmaster Elite Series angler.
My name's Corey Johnston. I fish the Bassmaster Elite Series.
When I started fishing, I was 2 years old. I would go out with my dad. He was a competitive tournament angler. He was fishing at the top level in Canada, and I would spend my summers on the boat with my brother. We would practice for tournaments growing up until I was about 11 years old. Then I finally got the call to go in my first tournament fish with my dad. The reason I actually got in the tournament was because my brother got grounded. He was supposed to fish it, and so the night before I got the call and we went in that tournament, and I still remember like it was yesterday. We ended up winning, caught 20 or 30 bass, all on top water, and I was hooked on competitive tournament angling from that day forward.
Took it south of the border down to the States at that point, and Chris fished his very first one, finished second, won Angler of the Year in the Costa Series that year. And it's just progressed, and then we ended up fishing the FLW Tour for 3 years, and we got really lucky and got an invite to the Bassmaster Elite Series in 2019 and had a great year. And it's just kind of all coming together.
Growing up, my brother and I are always very competitive, and whether it be at hockey, who's faster, who's going to score more goals in a game, and we've translated that into fishing, who has a better tournament, who has a better year, and that's really drives us to do better, that competitiveness. And even if he finishes 60th, I want to be 59th or better, so I have bragging rights until the next tournament at least, and I really think that pushes us even further.
We're super competitive people. It doesn't matter if we're on the water, we're playing hockey, we're playing cards, whatever we're doing, we want to win. And that's just kind of been the I guess the attitude that my parents instilled in us when we were little kids. You know, it's if you're gonna do something, do it as hard as you can. We want to win. It doesn't matter. Now we're at the top level of our game in the bass fishing industry, and when we're at the top level, we need the best product and equipment that we can use. And we've partnered with Iowa because we believe that not only are they the best fishing company in the world, but they have the best product, the best people, and we're extremely excited to be with them. I'm Corey Johnston.
I'm Chris Johnston. I'm at the top of my game, and I'm here to stay.
We've finally made it. We're here, and we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, I was building on a lecture. Verses coming daily under pressure. Working on applying the scheme. The true style trademark is at the edge of your dreams. I'm talking one shot for the kill. The breeze come freeze up. Straight dropping the chills. I'm talking taking over pieces and shares. A ball break sky high. Check the movement is here. Yeah. It's one heart, one shot. Now the future is yours. Go. I'm turning dreams into reality. In the lab with the formula and chemistry. Your memories spark and motivate and make the industry shake. We put the balls in the brakes. I'm talking one chance at best, yes. Painting pictures for the culture, keep the brushes fresh. Flip the cover, work the drummer, passion never rests. Freedom is a teacher under pressure, now we blessed. See, I was so close with the goal. It's one art, one shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah. It's one art, one shot.